Twitter keeps it.
There you go. That's fucking good.
Grumble. All right, how about... Hello to all our listeners out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 49 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, recorded on October 31st, 2016. Joining us this evening, we have Marty. Marty is a semi-regular panelist on Canadian Patriot Party. No, that's not right.
Nice.
Hey, Marty, how's it going?
Doing all right. Just keep moving on, eh?
Yep, drive on. We also have Gavin. Gavin's a business owner, gun enthusiast, hunter, atheist, and the host of the Greater Toronto Area chapter of the Tactical Beer Owners Club. Hey, Gavin, how you doing?
Pretty good. You?
I didn't get through the intro yet, so, you know.
That's all right.
Good.
Plenty more episodes to get it right.
We also have Tyler. Tyler's a sports shooter, a political agitator, gun rights and liberty advocate, and a fellow podcaster. He currently shoots with Uncle Pepe's Deplorables, sponsored by IBM. Question. What does IBM stand for?
It's a computer company. I can't remember what it stands for.
International Business Machines.
I didn't know if it was the computer company or if there was like another joke in there that was too esoteric for me to...
Well, there is a layered joke in there, but,
I'm gonna share it.
No, I'm not going to, give away. No, definitely not.
We also have Rachel, a flawless and beautiful vessel for the next God Emperor or Empress, a fellow shooter and hunter. Rachel. How's the very pregnancy going?
Fantastic.
2 more days.
Or less.
Or less.
It could be any minute.
Yeah.
Poppin'.
As always, I'm your host, Andrew. I'm a libertarian, a competitive shooter, gear reviewer at everydaytactical.com, and a firearms instructor.
And we'd love to hear your feedback about the show, so please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. If you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, when you do that, leave a little comment as to what you'd like me to drink for an episode, and I'll see if I can make that happen for you. And the edited version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
I think, Gavin, you have naturally funny eyes. I think you should do the face mask thing more often.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on from that awkward transition. So if you were opted for the blue pill and you enjoy Instagram and Facebook, you can find the podcast on there. Instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast and Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast. Give us a like. We'll let you know when new episodes air and when we're live on YouTube, which is usually Monday nights at 9.
Dude, I got to object. Facebook and Instagram, that's how we disseminate the red pills. We got all the kids hooked on the red pills. They're popping them,
Dude, that place is just for the normies.
Wherever it is they do drugs, they're taking our red pills.
Amazing. So let's talk about upcoming events. I'm going to make Rachel do this because why not?
Oh, I got to scroll down to my show notes. I'm not on my game here. You can't throw this at me.
What am I reading?
The shell for the shoot.
Oh, yeah. So on Saturday, November 5th, we have the Fuck Cancer charity shoot. I got to open it up with the explicit words.
Yeah. So now everyone's free to drop F-bombs.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here.
So this is to help raise money in light of my mother's recent battle with cancer. She passed about 5 weeks ago, and we would greatly benefit from the financial support. We are raising money and funds to help with the estate matters and settling that, because she passed away without a will and left 6 kids in her wake who are still quite young and getting started and need all the help that we can get.
Yeah, like 3 of them were like totally dependent on her, and we got our own kid on the way. We're not in any position to take care of the younger ones. The family's just in quite a mess. So any shekels people can throw our way will really go a long way to for these kids to be able to get their lives started after the affairs of the estate are settled.
Plus, it's going to be super fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. We've got 4 stages. We've already got 51 shooters registered. We're capping it at 64. We've got 4 different heats, 8 different squads. We'll be shooting all day from 9 until 5. And everybody's going to be there. We'll have food and drink available, good times, and probably go out for dinner and beers afterwards. So weather's looking good, so it should be a good time. Come on out. We've got a prize table. We've got Andrew's donated some prizes. We've got Rick Woods from Fire Arts Solution Training, Vortex prize package, Elwood Epps, Canadian Tactical Cowboys supplies. All kinds of people have really have pitched in to kind of make this event happen. So it'd be good to see people out there.
Yeah, even if you don't want to come out and shoot, you should come out anyways. There's going to be a barbecue, and we're going to be socializing and hanging out. It'll be a great time to meet fellow gunnies and like-minded people.
Yep. But
So what are the four
sorry,
stages?
fellas, she's taken.
So what are the 4 stages? What rifle? That kind of thing?
So we're going to do this with no holsters, no slings, and very little movement. It'll be very friendly competition. Each stage will be a different firearm. So there'll be a pistol stage, a rifle stage, and a shotgun stage. And we're also doing like a precision rifle stage.
Yeah.
It's going to be a know your limits target. So there'll be scoring zones of various sizes. And if you miss, you don't get any points. But if you shoot the big circle, you'll get fewer points than if you shoot the really little circles.
Yeah.
So it's all that'll be at like 25 yards. The other stuff's all going to be pretty close too. We're going to have a bunch of steel targets out. I don't think I'm missing anything with that.
No, not really. I mean, I've been talking about stage design with Rachel mostly today, actually, and I've got people contacting me asking me if they can bring like their fathers out, and the implication being their fathers are quite old. I've got people asking me if they can bring their kids out, or whoever they're mentoring, people who don't have their PALs, people who don't have their RPALs, and so we got a lot of new shooters that want to come out. So we're trying to create a match that's challenging to seasoned shooters and not intimidating to new shooters.
I think it should be a good time. There'll be lots of table starts. There won't be a lot of movement.
Mm-hmm.
The targets are going to be big and close.
You don't need a whole
All
lot
of
of cool guy gear, and if you do need anything, we'll have stuff to borrow. So,
Speaking of cool guy gear, if you got a plate carrier with armor plates, if you wear it for the whole match, you'll get a free additional raffle entry.
We should talk about how that raffle is going to work. So you get a raffle ticket for showing up. You get a raffle ticket if you wear a body armor for the day. And then you can also spend money to get more raffle tickets.
No, I specifically said you have to wear body armor for the match, not the day.
Okay.
So while you are competing, you must be wearing your body armor.
So we're all wearing our body armor all day.
I'll be wearing my body armor all day, and I'm not even competing. So
Perfect. Yeah.
well, that's because we got a lot of new shooters out. I mean, like, who
yeah,
knows,
you never
right?
know. You never know.
I mean,
But yeah, we're asking $40 for entry. It's all for a good cause. We'll have the raffle tickets for sale all day. We've got event T-shirts made and other promotional shirts. We've got Liberty Death Podcast shirts and Bayonets out for Harambe shirts and Ragnarok Tactical shirts. Have I left anything out?
I think there's going to be Canadian Patriot podcast shirts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw the plate for that. So we'll have the Canadian Patriot Podcast shirts as well.
You've got a show for your shirt.
I already said Bayonets out for Harambe, but I
you
guess
didn't show
for the
sure.
YouTube viewers, that's what we're looking at.
well,
Yeah.
That is definitely a gorilla and bayonets.
Yeah, and they're out for him.
yeah.
So
Only place to get that shirt right now is going to be at the charity shoot. So,
yeah,
Very, very limited edition.
yeah.
Very limited.
Yeah, Tim's good shirts.
I hear they're very good.
They're quite good.
yeah, that is the word on the street.
All right, let's do what we're drinking tonight. We'll start with Gavin. Gavin, what are you drinking?
I have a selection of ciders this evening. There was a request a while ago from a 5-star reviewer that wanted me to drink ciders. I mean, they said specifically the one that's up near Tyler, but if I couldn't find any, to just get any cider. So I'm drinking whatever ciders they had in stock at the liquor store at my place. I'll try and grab some from the one up by Tyler at a later date. And
Wow.
really,
He doesn't like people who hunt.
He doesn't like people who hunt. Well, then screw that.
What?
No, the guy that owns the cidery in Thornbury.
Oh yeah, he doesn't.
Really?
He had words, but he didn't want to You could read it in his face. He was like, I have hunters come here to ask for the leftover apple pulp, but I don't want to do that. He was signaling.
There was disdain.
Yeah, he was signaling.
Oh, well, then I'm not drinking that cider. He can
Yeah.
go fuck himself.
Yeah, but the one of the owners of the Thornbury Cidery is a relative of a mutual friend of like everybody on the panel, Jeff. And he gave us a free tour of the facility last summer, so that was pretty
He
good.
was solid.
Yeah, solid guy.
All right. And Rachel, I saw you just changed the show notes. Are you not drinking anything now?
I'm not drinking anything. Tyler had initially put tea, but then he did not make me a tea.
Wow.
So I am tea.
And you're still having his baby. That's
I'm still,
That's rough.
there's no stopping this train.
Oh, man, right under the bus.
Well,
Tyler, what are you drinking aside from your own shame?
Yeah, my own shame. I'm drinking Belgian Moon,
Nice.
a nice wheat beer. Screw you, Trevor. I do take issue with the moon on the can, though. It's obviously not a Belgian moon because it's not obscured by the smoke from terrorist attacks. But the beer is quite good.
Wow, that's dark. All right. I have.
no, actually, yeah. Wheat
I
beers
promised
are
to-
pretty light in color, not dark.
I promised to review fellow homebrewer's beer on the show tonight. So this is Sean's Amber Ale. I used to work with Sean, and he got into homebrewing recently. And I gotta say, he's doing a very damn good job for being the only person in his home that drinks, and immediately going to like the largest possible home brewery system that you could make. His beer is very good. He definitely didn't piddle around like I did making small batches first. He went right to the big stuff and he did a good job. So I think it's a good example of an amber ale. It's amber. It's ale. I have very little else to say about it.
We should do a live episode where we brew beer.
Yes.
Perfect.
And then-
We just need a Saturday or
And then
some
we-
other full day.
And then
That's
another episode
hard to
where we
come by.
drink it all day.
Yeah.
You're not going to have many of those.
Not for, I don't know, 14 or 15 years probably.
We can just do it at your place, Tyler. Don't worry.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind if my house
In the
smells like a
garage.
brewery, so
That's half the fun.
yeah. Right?
All right. Let's go into the news, I guess.
Did we ask Marty what he's drinking? Did I miss that?
No, Marty didn't fill out his show notes like always. Marty, what are you drinking?
Coors Banquet again?
No, actually, even worse. I have the king of beers tonight.
Oh, nice.
Coors Banquet is actually the official beer of the Right Wing Death Squad, which is what we call our after-shoot social at my gun club.
Where they don't yell at you for having a beer in the parking lot.
That's right.
Like some other clubs do.
That's right.
Yeah, we've never had that happen anywhere.
This week.
All right, let's go into the news. We're going to start with Gavin. I think you started most of these ones, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Just because I can.
You want me to talk about the first one here?
Yeah, why don't you take the first one?
All right, so the government looks like it may take a look at imposing some gender quotas on publicly, I guess, traded-owned corporations. So if there's not enough females, I guess is the way that they're going to go after it, because they don't ever put this so that there's not enough males. So they're going to put a number that you've got to hit, and you're going to have to employ those people regardless of their qualifications, other than whether they're male or female.
Okay, so here's a question though, despite the obvious, but what ability to enforce this do we have?
Well, they're the government. They have guns. That's
Social contracts, Marty. We signed social contracts.
I got to make a quick distinction there. The government has guns, but we have guns, but the government has the willingness to use them. That's the basis of their authority. We don't have the willingness to use guns to impose our will. They do.
I think when you say we, you're like generalizing Canadians, right? I mean, I don't think you're talking about this panel of individuals in particular.
Yeah, no, I would never, put you guys in that position. I'm speaking generally.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know if it's so much that they have the will, so much as they have less red tape to cut through to be able to use them.
Well, if by less you mean none.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas we may have to go to court.
Oh, there's no may. We would get arrested.
Well, we might, run away.
Been there.
Am I being
Hey, maybe
detained?
Gavin will be detained on his way to the charity shoot.
I can only hope, guys. I will be wearing my multicam, so I will have the appropriate attire to be pulled over in.
So I want to know with this this gender equality in private workplaces, if that means they're going to force women to work in sanitation, because I think that would be entertaining to see them force that.
Well,
sort of
yeah,
diversity
But they're not a
hire
publicly
into-
traded company.
No, but there's lots of sanitation services that are privately owned and contracted by municipalities.
So, but again, though, they don't specify that you need to have a gender equal workforce. You just have to have a gender equal executive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just their corporate boards and senior management,
Yeah.
which is usually 1 in 5 if you're lucky on a corporate board.
Yeah.
20%, yeah.
Well, the thing that I'm curious about is if they're going to enforce it both ways, because there are a lot of female businesses that are run by a group of women for women kind of a thing. Will they then, with those companies, because fair is fair, say, oh, well, you don't have any men on your board, you must hire men?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. They definitely won't.
Shitlib media outlets like the Huffington Post, their editorial board is all women.
Yeah.
Then
they're like, yay, super diversity. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, but equality at the
We've got
barrel.
to make up for the worst people.
Yeah, equality at the barrel of a gun only works one way.
Well, it's not equality.
No.
Well, my concern is that if you're putting, go ahead.
I'm saying, if it's equality, it's that there's an equal opportunity for a female and a male, and whoever is the most qualified or whoever makes it to that position, that's who gets the job. That's equality. 50 split is not equality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's say that they have really aggressive targets for 2017. It's 30%, and then 2019 it's at 40%. And my concern is, are they just going to start promoting women that are less qualified than somebody else who might have applied, a male of any racial background, whatever, then just screwing over the company and then technically devaluing it because they have somebody who's less competent?
My theory on the way this would play out is that they would create fluff positions that they can stuff with women to meet the quota. And
I was going to use the example of the Liberal cabinet for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a vice minister of doorknob polish, that they parachute some handicapped Aboriginal Muslim or something, just so they can check all the boxes, who's also a lesbian or something. I don't know. And
So
that's the way they operate.
Or
Their Liberal cabinet.
Minister
the
of
same
Democratic Systems, for example.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a great one.
They just created positions and assigned women to them
And just
to balance it out.
And then a year
bogus
in decide that
executive
your
titles.
position is useless because they're not even going to do electoral reform.
The rule of thumb is the more words on your business card, the more bullshit your job is.
Yeah. Executive strategist, chief executive strategist, which what does that really even mean?
Assistant to the chief executive strategist. They're all just placeholders. And what you're going to get is you're going to get waste at the corporate level to keep the government off their backs. And that's going to create an expense because they're going to have a legal team to deal with the BS. And then they're going to have a fluff position that the market didn't demand exist. And then all of those expenses are going to be passed on to the consumer, and you're going to get how should I say, sexed non-consensually on both sides because the government is going to tax you more to pay for the enforcement of it. So it's just you as the consumer.
What is the enforcement anyway? What do they do?
Well, there's going to be a team of people that review this stuff, at some RCMP office, and
They get fined?
I'm
And
sure it'll be fine.
there'll be fines or they'll impose whatever. Or they'll parachute somebody in.
An audit every year until
Yeah. The gender audit. See, but here's another.
Can you self-identify as a female?
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Can we use their own BS against them? Can we just have a bunch of men identify as women?
Transgender.
It is the current year.
What if the gender quotas include,
all 31 genders?
Non-binary, like, is that going to be in there too, or like?
Like, this is actually a very restrictive quota.
So with one stroke of a pen, the Liberal government has refused to recognize the other 29 genders. And,
How dare they?
But only when it comes to the businesses that produce taxes to fund the government.
Yeah, or they have, with the stroke of a pen, with the same stroke, forced every corporation, every publicly traded corporation to have a board at least 31 people strong.
Yeah.
Or they forced a lot of private or public companies to become private companies and start buying up shares.
Yeah, like what happens?
And that's always the complaint about companies, is there's not enough executives.
Yeah.
It's always what people, you hear it all the time. Like,
there's never enough layers of management or bureaucry to get through.
This company is too bottom heavy. We need more managers.
You start knocking on cubicles like, I just don't have enough bosses. That's the problem with this company.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to be promoted?
People tell me I used the wrong cover sheet on my TPS report.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
7 people.
Well, you know what I do every day, Bob?
And I mean, seeing as we actually have a woman on the panel this evening, which is a rare event on this show, I mean, what do you think? Like, would you be completely offended if you got a job just because you're a woman and not because of your qualifications?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, like, I think I'm the best at everything.
She is, though.
But I would be like, if I knew that the company that I work for was participating in this particular gender balancing of the executive, I would really feel like I'd be really self-conscious about doing my job, because everybody would just be saying, "Oh, she's just here because she's a female." Like, and that's not the bullshit you want tailing you, because then it just brings into question your
that's exactly what happens. It's exactly what happens. It actually takes respect away from the women. Like, the women that are in executives right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, you have a lot of respect for them because they've earned that position.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, some of those have probably earned it because they've worked a lot harder than some of their male counterparts to get over some of the sexism that existed, especially in older companies with a lot of older management people that were kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like they don't want women on the executive board because if they get their periods, it will attract the bears.
That's a fact.
I mean, the last thing you want, though, is like a bear tearing through your boardroom office.
Exactly. And because you can't carry in this country, so what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you got to keep women off the board.
Yeah, it's scary. I've had that happen once in a board meeting. Luckily, it ended up like just bursting through the wall and then through the window. Like, it just kind of was taking a shortcut somewhere else, I think, and we were okay.
It was on its way to Five Guys.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But we were safe. But yeah, no, I was like, man, I really wish I had my shotgun with me, but I didn't, because I can't do that. I can't hang it.
I say that every day for unrelated reasons.
And then the whole boardroom's totally destroyed, and you're like, and this is what we get when we try to have gender equality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this what you wanted?
Fall down on your knees and like, damn you, Trudeau.
Yeah. Like, it shouldn't have to be something that they will into a law, like they force into existence. It's something that corporations are already doing on their own volition because they want to attract diverse applicants to diversify their corporation for their own reasons, whatever those reasons might be. All the HR,
companies that are actually hiring diversely because they want more diversity in their company. I've tended to find that, at least in my experience, companies tend to hire other people that are like the people that are doing the hiring, because they want other people that have the same goals to promote a corporate culture, to drive some sort of common goal and establish a esprit de corps in their organization. I'm not saying that they don't intentionally have diversity hiring. I just think the average company is actually trying to hire other like-minded people.
Okay.
It's not even intentionally like that. Like, there is, a human phenomena that's sort of tribal bias kind of thing. Like, you hire and prefer to be around people that are like you.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you get ethnic neighborhoods, because they kind of move here and they want to be close to people that are like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's human nature.
Yeah, in my experience, and I've done a lot of interviews for frontline positions as a manager, like, I feel like probably like 70 applicants over the past year. And I'm always told by my manager, who's a male, to go back to our talent acquisition to ask for a more diverse slate, which means usually I'm getting 5 males to 1 female actually applying and getting through for the roles. So it's not even, so that's like this whole imbalance where we just have to aggressively recruit to hit the balance, as you might call it, because you need to start down at the front line to make it filter all the way up. And I think that's how they're trying to hit that balance on their own.
Well, I mean, like it comes down to like there's so many different factors. Like women and men tend to want to do different things. Like they tend to choose different career paths. They tend to choose different education, sort of different education programs. Like so, in order to expect equality of outcome in every industry is ridiculous. You know, equal opportunity and equal outcome are 2 different things. As long as the equal opportunity is there and they're not being discriminated against because they're female or because they're male, then that's the goal.
But I mean, and yeah, like what about, you know, teachers? There's definitely a lack of male teachers, especially in the younger grades. Are they going to put a quota for that?
No, you don't mess with the teachers union, man. That's the bread and butter of the government.
That one.
You don't mess with them.
You know, I mean, if the government wants to implement whatever stupid rules they want to implement for their own organizations, that's their own business. But I mean, as soon as like, oh, well, publicly traded businesses are the public, so we can impose our will on them. No. Yeah. That's still a private business, but it's just traded publicly. Like that's not the same thing.
Well, I mean,
as a government business.
Union definitely echoes, by the way, Andrew, edit that in. But there's an old trope that
we need helium balloons for that.
There's something that like Matt and I have talked about on our show, and it's that government exercises ownership over everything within its territory. Anything that you claim to be exclusively yours is only yours because they have no interest in controlling it. When we talk about, exactly. It's like it's only a matter of time. So we're talking about, you know, corporations and whatnot. Now government assumes it has the authority to run your business, right? And in this case, okay, they're publicly traded, but they're owned by their shareholders. Unless the federal government is willing to buy up 51% of the shares, they don't have a say.
Yeah, how can they actually legally enforce that?
They don't have a legitimate say.
That was my initial question. Is I don't understand what mechanism they would have to enforce this at all. Even to place a fine, I don't understand what mechanism they have to do that.
Because it has owners.
Exactly. So through legislation for the government to say it owns these businesses and dictating how these businesses are run is a claim of ownership, then that is one facet of communism.
So I have a question regarding precedents for that. Take the language laws in Quebec. The government of Quebec dictates that the English signs must be more prominent than the French sign must be more prominent than the English on a sign in businesses in Quebec. Would this not be the same precedent to say that the government has control over your private business by some act that's been passed?
It's the same principle. It's the government claiming ownership over something private.
Well, I mean, I think it all kind of ties into like the bill or whatever that the e-petition that Sean was putting forth about changing our chartered rights to include like property rights, which would include owning a business and not having the government come in and tell you that, you know, they can change things around on you.
Yeah, and like, you know, when it comes to hiring practices, if you want to have an all male or all female staff or an all white or all Indian staff, whatever, you know, that's your business to run as you see fit, and the market will punish you if it has a problem with it. So if you want to run, you know, like say I don't know, a car service where it's like all white people or Indian people, and you're catering to a certain demographic that wants that, if there's enough demand to support the business model as it is, then that's what it is. And if your market is going to boycott you for that practice, then you're going to fail, right? So having these restrictions lifted allows businesses to rise up and flourish and satisfy every market demand. And then all these people that want something, they don't feel like they're getting screwed. They don't feel like they're being denied something by government, because that's the status quo right now. Is there are laws and regulations that stand in the way of businesses being run the way a particular, you know, market segment A, B, or C wants something to be run. Right. And if no one cares, then no one cares. And then you're going to see that. You're going to see employers just not care because their market doesn't care.
Well, I mean, I look at it this way. I would rather know if a business that I want to do business with is racist, sexist, religiousist, or whatever-ist up front.
And then vote with your wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
Prime example. I didn't want my telecommunications company shilling for the carbon tax, so I canceled my contract and moved to another carrier, as did Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that's a perfect example, right? Like, if you don't, like, I would rather know what a business I'm doing business with is about up front, rather than, like, you spend all this time and money doing business with somebody and then you find out that you don't agree with their basic principles.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that you haven't figured it out is because, well, they can't tell you, like,
yeah.
No, I would rather know up front. Like, if I don't want to do business with a certain person, I'd rather know, and then I'll spend my money elsewhere. Thank you. Like,
yeah, we don't need government to regulate that. I don't understand why we're even paying politicians to debate this. This shouldn't be something that's within the purview of our government.
The market is way more efficient at achieving these goals.
Yeah, because we don't need oversight.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah, the market does it for free.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kick the next one to Marty because I was talking to him earlier today, and I got the impression that he may have been a little bit triggered.
Not triggered. I thought this was pretty funny, though. So the canoe is racist.
Yep.
So I guess for anyone that hasn't read the article, let me open it up right now. Basically, we have another university professor that's claiming that the canoe is a symbol of colonialism, and because only the vast majority of people today that go canoeing are white, that the canoe is a symbol of racism and colonialism.
And white privilege, and genocide, and theft.
Yeah, and take a look at this woman's picture. Typical liberal cat lady. Probably doesn't have any children, so instead she tries to mother our country.
So I guess
that's a good point. She's a professor from University of Victoria, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
In Victoria. I ask, only this could come out of Victoria.
Gavin, what are you eating?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I was going to point out that...
yeah.
Like, there is a mute button, dude.
Yeah, dude. Come on. Podcast etiquette, bro.
Jeez. Sorry, carry on. Yeah. Cat lady from University of Victoria.
Ridiculous. And I don't know who I said it to, but it was yesterday at the baby shower. It was like the only thing you can do to satisfy these people as a cisgendered white male or white female, and that is to die prematurely and childless. That is all you can do to satisfy these people. You can cuck as hard and fast as you can and give up your canoes and give up your moccasins and your beaver tails and your dream catchers on your rearview mirrors. It doesn't matter. You're still a racist piece of human filth and debris. You suck, die, leave this land. There's nothing you can do to appease these people. That's why I've adopted the kind of like the culture of just saying, you know what, you go die, you leave, you find somewhere else to be. Like if my presence is so intolerable, you leave.
We did have this conversation on Friday.
Yeah, I have this conversation all the time.
But just one quick tangent though for the Dreamcatcher thing in rearview mirrors. Does that not scare anybody else? Why do you have something that's supposed to stop bad dreams hanging from the rear view in your car? You're not supposed to be sleeping behind the wheel.
Dude, narcolepsy's a thing. I mean, whatever. Maybe it's more common than we'd like to believe.
So, I mean, the big thing is that, it's an appropriation of native culture and such like that.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of research, not much. I went as far as Wikipedia. And according to Wikipedia,
legit source.
Yeah. According to Wikipedia, the earliest example that we have of canoes being in existence was found in the Netherlands in 8000 BC.
There you go. Dutch people own it.
So as a Dutch person, I'm claiming ownership. Fuck all you racist bastards for stealing my canoes.
So here's the thing. I mean, interesting that the word ship comes from Dutch,
but just bigger. That's what that was.
Yeah. Here's the thing. They're trying to. Of course, this is a one-way street. Anytime there's an idea or something that allegedly comes from another culture, it's supposed to be theirs. And if we, do it and, dare I say, do it better, then we've somehow like appropriated it and denied them their dignity. But the idea that a culture or people owns an idea is ridiculous.
Like braids.
Yeah,
So-
like braids. So what? Okay, are we supposed to wag our fingers at people? If they're going to use airplanes, electricity, satellites, like the combustion engine. Like, is that our role now? Is this the game we want to play? Because we got a lot of things we can take away from the rest of the world if you want to play that game.
No,
Guys, I looked it up. Forks can be attributed to the Romans, and Romans kept slaves. So if you eat using a fork, you're
Tacit
pro-slavery.
endorsement of slavery. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tacit endorsement, 100%.
Although I always like to use the argument that, like, whenever I get accused of cultural appropriation, that I'm just embracing my white colonial heritage, and I'm actually not appropriating then. I'm supporting my history and heritage and proud background of, stealing from other people's cultures and making it better.
I don't think you're allowed to be a white person and also be proud of your heritage.
That's not allowed, dude. If you go,
sure that's not.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
here's a fun
It's the
social
current
experiment
era.
for the viewers and listeners. Go on Wikipedia and look up the pages on Asian Pride, Black Pride, Native Pride, et cetera, and every description of those movements will be a movement for solidarity, pride, and heritage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Look at the page on white pride. What is it? Like an expression of neo-Nazism. They want to kill everybody. Like,
KKK.
that's what it is.
I think part of the problem, though, is like when you call it white pride. I mean, there's so many different white cultures that you lump all into
Do you mean
one.
That
umbrella
applies to
term?
everybody. That
Or
applies to
Jamaican?
everybody. In Africa, they necklace each other if you're from the wrong tribe. Give me a break.
Oh yeah,
That
But I
applies
think
to
that's
everybody.
Oh, I agree, but I think that's part of the problem,
Especially
though, right? Like,
Yeah.
So
The Africans are the most racist people on the planet. They will wipe each other out.
All right, so we all had our laugh. This lady's crazy.
yeah,
Now, but here's what's even like. She has a voice. Like, this got public. She makes this crazy claim, and she gets coverage on the CBC,
Yeah.
and they report on it. Like, she gets
Yeah.
like what's scarier to me than this woman saying that canoes are racist are the CBC going, hey, university professor saying canoes are racist.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
But you know what this contributes to the collapse in any sort of credibility that the media has, but also our post-secondary institutions. There's zero credibility.
Academia is just like fuck.
Everybody knows academia is a haven for shit-lib communism, like leftist nonsense, social justice warrior nonsense, and people just tune it out.
just further proof that the universities and the media echo louder and louder and louder.
Like I'm genuinely like, okay, like our children, should they go to post-secondary education, I'm just going to be like math and science. You can't possibly screw that up, right? But I'm sure they will by the time the kid's old enough. But like I want to keep them out of the arts because I went through that system and I learned very quickly there is a right and wrong answer to an opinion question in academic circles.
There is.
Yeah, sadly it is. And universities all supposed to be about higher learning and talking about things, but now you need trigger warnings. You can't even talk about certain
They
subjects.
coddle people. It's ridiculous.
In a philosophy
It's supposed to be
class,
challenging.
it's only good if you're a socialist and anti-capitalist. Trust me,
Yeah.
I learned.
Yep.
Yeah, you're supposed to be challenging ideas and challenging people's opinions and
Yeah, we got that with that one guy. He's at Carleton, who's calling social justice warriors like enemies of free speech and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Good on
I'm
him.
sure you're going to talk about the guy that was wearing the Make America Great Again hat.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't see any interview or anything with him, but if he's wearing a MAGA hat, good on him. Also, Gavin, what's the status on her MAGA hats?
They should be here in time for the shoot so we can rock them out just in time for the election.
Nice.
Awesome.
But then once that's done, I think we're going to have to start making Make Ontario Great Again hats. and
Yeah,
start
because
selling out.
America will have been made great again.
Yeah.
Maybe Ontario will just be incorporated into America.
They would never do that. They'll take Alberta and write the rest of us off.
Yeah. Well, with its current state, they certainly won't take Ontario.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to work on that ourselves and oust win and make Ontario great again. So
Yep.
once the U.S. election is over, we'll have to ride those coattails and
Yep.
yeah.
All right, let's
Start-
do
It's exciting.
the last news for today. Whatever. It's only like one more week till the election, and then America will be great.
No, we got a couple. We got a couple. Oh, yeah, one more news, official news. Yeah.
One more news for the news, and then we'll do the next thing. So the last news is from the Toronto Sun. Taxpayers paid $1.9 million for city workers' erectile dysfunction medication.
Yeah, money well spent, guys.
So I guess if you're in Toronto, you're getting fucked.
Some people literally. Government-sponsored boners for all.
Government-sponsored boners for unionized city employees.
How many of them are on the sunshine list?
I would love to know. I also don't understand how their little survey of people that were like abusing this medication system to get their little blue pills and various other drugs like fentanyl and oxycodone. Like 32 people on their little list here had 19 months worth of fentanyl patches.
I was just going to suggest they're selling them.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that this is a scam?
Yeah.
Like that
big
people
time.
might be using their
Oddly
union benefits
enough,
to get meds and then sell them?
No
oddly
doubt
enough,
about it.
There's a fentanyl problem going around.
Yeah. They're getting them. The government's reimbursing them, and they're selling them. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a hell of a lot of boner meds.
Yeah.
Yeah, 37 claimants on their list. I don't know how many claimants there is total, but there's 37 on their list that scored over $3,000 in little blue pills for 2015.
That's
I
a
just want
lot.
to bet they all work in close proximity to each other as well.
Yeah, like this seems like a
Yeah.
scam.
Like,
Like somebody figured
One
out
guy
how to
told
pay.
the other guy, like, check
You know,
out this
like,
scam.
I think like they work for the government, guys. You probably should take it a little easier on them. I think erectile
Get out.
dysfunction is probably just a side effect of being a cuck.
Yeah.
Well
Probably just
played.
comes with the territory.
It's a chicken or the
Well,
egg thing. I think people whose penises don't work probably end up in government.
Yeah, and then if you are in government, your
Yeah.
penis just stops working.
It's like a self-sustaining economy.
and then your
of-
children don't look like you.
Yeah, and your children look nothing like you.
Sweet standard fuck parties that we are not getting invited to.
120 guys. You know, it's really, it's,
One or two condoms the next day.
only one or two condoms on the floor the next day. You know, that's
Sorry,
probably
Andrew, I had to.
probably why they put fisting in the Ontario curriculum. You know, maybe the turnout started to get pretty poor, so they needed more kids to come up through the system.
Yeah, probably.
Fisting guys are over there. They like to hang out
Yeah.
outside. It's really quite romantic, actually, when you think about it.
The pews were looking a little empty. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So the Philpott Report, every week we find something stupid our government's done to waste our money on. And we've named this segment in honor of Jane Philpott, the health minister that spent a lot of money on stupid stuff.
That's so much editing.
You're moving past the boner pills?
Well, that's one of the things they spent money on.
Can I ask, who put boner pills in the show notes? Is that you, Andrew?
It was not. Is that really in the show notes? Because I'm going to have to edit that.
No, but I'm talking about
Like, who put this
the
news
story
article in?
about the boner
Oh,
pills.
I did. I
think it was
posted that to the group.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean, you had to have known that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have realized who my... I was going to say audience is, but that's not
Right.
really who the...
Hey,
like,
Rachel, the dark horse, dropping the C word.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to...
Haven't I chosen wisely? Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Kudos
a
to you.
awesome. Its first word's gonna be cuck.
It's going to be cuck. It's going to like... It's
It's
going
gonna
to...
be like mugga.
It's gonna come out. They'll be like, you know, Trudeau will be saying something dumb, probably like writing $1 billion check to like Bahrain or something, and then the baby's just gonna say "cuck."
Yeah.
I support that. All right, let's do the Philpott Report. So, according to the Tories, Liberals have spent $11.7 million on consultants and advertising for their $12 million hydro rebate plan. So, way
Does
to...
this shock anybody?
Yeah, no, way to go. Way to go, Ontario Liberals. We've got $12 million to help bring everybody's bills down. Let's tell everybody how great we are and let them know that we're going to help them with their bills. And yeah, here's a couple of bucks. Get out of the, stop complaining.
No, but I mean, it's just further proof that this wasn't intended to save you money. It was intended for them to save face.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
It's marketing.
So, yes, the entire that 8% was not to help the average Ontario person because they didn't reduce the cost of hydro any. They just moved taxation around. So this whole thing was a PR move to begin with, and so then they spent money like it's a PR move.
Yeah, it's totally PR. Look at us and how great we are and how we're going to save you all of the money, but we're actually spending that money on advertising to tell you how great we are.
Blows my mind. Reminds me of a gun shop owner I ran into recently.
Would you like to tell us about that?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Walked into a gun shop recently. Well, I won't dox the guy. But I probably just gave him away. There's a male gun shop owner, you know. Or maybe it's wrong for me to assume his gender. But he was telling me about how the Bureau of, what did he say? Tobacco
Enforcement.
Tobacco Enforcement Ministry, Bureau, whatever.
Yeah.
Threatening him with a fine. And he just said
a $360 fine for not having a sticker in the window that said no smoking.
But myself and Rachel, we were in there, and I wasn't wearing anything like shitlordy. I was wearing my like anti-Quebec gun registry hoodie, which he probably didn't understand or recognize. But he just said, I wish the young people in this province would revolt and overthrow the government.
Boy, do I have a podcast for him.
Yeah. But
next time we drop by, we'll drop a card.
But yeah, I
You
mean,
should
like,
drop off a couple of T-shirts.
there's nothing that typifies the need for a revolt for the hydro situation in this province. Paying the highest rates for electricity in the developed world, we're the most indebted sub-sovereign entity in the world. We're I don't know how many years into a liberal government. We've got corruption scandal after corruption scandal, waste, fraud, and abuse throughout.
As our consumption has fallen as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. Electricity demand in this province is down, like 40% since 2005?
Everybody knows the rates are going up tonight, right?
How appropriate.
So,
I can't even react to it anymore.
So as it starts to get colder and you wake up early maybe to go to work, or you come home early from work and you maybe crank the heater up just a little bit because it's starting to cool off, there goes some extra money right there.
Yeah. And then they get you on the back end because they don't even want you to heat your home with natural gas anymore. They're going to phase that out. So yeah, it's ridiculous. Like if only we could have like a liberal politician like hooked up to the pipes and then be cooking at like 85 degrees, piping hot all winter long with all their hot air. But
And like
that's not how I thought we were hooking them up. Okay, I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going there.
I mean,
or you could pop them in an oven. How long can we? No, I won't go there.
And the difficulty thing is these contracts are signed, so you can vote them out, and the people that come in, there's not a whole lot they can do about it.
Well, there is that, and like their hands are tied, but ultimately it's government, right? So if they want to do something illegal, all they need to do is do it and then pass a law to make it legal. I mean, they just need the political willingness to do so. And trust me, like that will happen. Like the road we're on in Ontario, we're twice as bad as California ever was. Somebody is going to elect a knife, and the cuts will be deep, and there will be nothing you can do about it. Yeah, so we had a choice that we could have made years ago, where the cuts could have been through attrition. We could have just frozen hiring. We could have just frozen wages. And the wages in a lot of cases are 2 and 3 times higher than the provincial average. It's ridiculous. We could have just frozen that and just let it sit. And then the people who had their jobs would have, they might have been pissed off that they weren't getting their, extra $3,000 a year or whatever they felt they were entitled to. But nothing bad was going to happen. And now we're in a situation where the government employees and their beneficiaries form a large enough voting bloc to swing an election. Now it's out of control. You can't avoid it. And now we're just going to run out of money. We've already run out of money. We're going to run out of credit. And then we're going to be bankrupt. So you could have had a good paying job instead of an excellent paying job. Now you have no job. How's that sound?
Honestly, I don't know if we have a political party in Canada that's willing to make the tough call.
We don't. We have this panel.
Well, this
That's what we
panel
got.
is.
No, I'm not kidding. I mean, you got people
I know
like
what
us
you're
who are
saying.
frustrated.
You're right. The government has the mechanism to actually fix it, but there's nobody that's not looking at their own like self-serving interests and trying to get reelected and trying to be popular. We don't have a party that's out there that's willing to make the calls necessary to fix this situation.
Exactly.
Even if we did, there's not enough people to vote for them. There really is, like,
Especially not a re-election, that's for sure.
Yeah. No,
like you couldn't form a political party with those goals and actually get them elected even into a minority government in this country because there are too many people, both employees and on the programs, that vote for a living and are going to vote for themselves to keep their jobs or their programs.
Yeah.
There's not enough taxpayers actually paying into the system to form a plurality to obtain leadership in the government.
exactly, and that's why I'm so pessimistic about it. And I mean, you're not going to win it democratically. Democratic means is what got us the situation that we're in today.
We've talked about this before. A hyper-inclusive democracy is not a good way to run a country.
Yeah, we need to disenfranchise as many people as possible.
Especially when you're importing hundreds of thousands of people every
Oh
year.
yeah, 400,000. like floor
coming in from third world countries that are living off the state.
Yeah.
Well, much higher percent, right?
Well, where's the incentive for them to get a job?
That's the thing, like a lot of these people are coming from oil-rich nations, and they're used to the government paying for everything, and that's what they expect from this government. Like, think about that.
Yeah. They're bringing what they know with them.
I would like to disenfranchise as many people as possible. I don't have a good solution for how we do that. I got some ideas, but
I got ideas.
Well, I think one of those ideas we're putting forward on Saturday. So anyone that's not sure what we're talking about, come on out on Saturday. We'll be happy to talk to you in person.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be a way. I mean, really, one of the simplest ways is that if you are a net recipient of public funds, you don't get to vote.
You don't get to vote.
You're a consumer. You're not a producer. If you want to have a say, then time to be a big boy and work hard and contribute. It's pretty simple. I mean, if that alone was the threshold. I mean, here's an example. The Americans are really good at producing like electoral maps based on demographics. And if you go pull up a electoral prediction of the next US presidential election, if only taxpayers could vote, it's a Republican sweep. It's like 49 states.
Yeah, I think they lose. Is it Washington State?
I think, yeah.
It's something in the top left. It's Washington State, or what else is above California?
There's something in the water, BC, Washington State.
Here's
what it is.
Also, though, if you look at the U.S., if you undo the immigration from basically from the 80s, it's a Republican state.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
If Romney,
if you look at all the voters from World War I, it's Democrats.
Yeah,
so
they vote like 6 or 7 times.
If you look at the demographics of the U.S. today, and you take that voting block and apply it over the last 27 presidents would all be Democratic. Like they've already influenced their elections that much by just through immigration.
That's what it is, right? Like if Romney had the demographics that Reagan had, Romney would have won by a landslide.
Yeah.
Right. But the demographics of the United States have radically changed in our lifetimes alone. And
I wish someone would do stats for Canada because it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. So glad you brought that up, Marty, because that's something that's not talked about. And especially the aspect of governments influencing elections by importing voters.
And I'm not against immigration, and I'm not against from any region. I don't care. But it needs to be.
No, you are. You want Dutch people only. I heard you say it. You want Dutch people to paddle over in their canoes.
The Dutch after the EU, right?
Yeah.
So no, I just mean immigration needs to be at a rate where where they can be assimilated. It has to be at a rate that's controlled within the population, where like this accelerated rate of bringing in people from third world countries, it substantially sort of upsets the demographic. It upsets the economics of the country. Sort of uncontrolled immigration is just.
But if you talk about it that way, you're a racist.
Oh yeah, you're a racist. Yeah.
I can see your white privilege.
You can't have a serious conversation about this stuff, because if you express any any semblance of, like pride in what this country was or could be or whatever, like if you
Canadian heritage.
If you express like any criticism towards the path like that this country is on, like you're a racist, you Nazi, you are literally Hitler. Like there is nothing, you cannot have a serious conversation about these issues.
Does multiculturalism have an echo?
Yeah, definitely.
Very
Like, it's like a perpetual feedback loop on that. It echoes itself.
We have to end the podcast.
It's echoes. Yeah.
It's like a divide by zero error. We're just done.
Yeah, but it's quite, it's quite rustling, because it's one of the big issues that no one ever talks about. And it's because, the government, right, supposedly our representatives, they're obsessed with, stacking corporate boards with women and trannies and, parachuting visible minorities and whoever they can get on there. Anybody who is different in some way.
I said it before, Barty Shager is going to be the next Liberal leader.
Is that the one that has that clinic that tried to resurrect the long gun registry?
No, she's the MP for Waterloo.
Oh god,
she's a female multi-culti one that had no experience in politics and was named she's like leader of the House now, or
I don't know who that is.
Speaker of the House. Sorry.
But I met Waterloo's old MP flipping burgers for a Crohn's disease and colitis barbecue. So I'll say that.
Cool story, bro.
He was a nice guy. And I'm not even going to mention the political party out of respect for the hate mail, not hate mail that we received this week.
Yeah, we'll get to my hate mail.
We do love our hate mail.
I love hate mail. Hate mail sustains me.
It was a conservative.
That was a long one too.
Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna have to break that up. Pictures reading it. The other thing I wanted to touch on before we moved on, since we were talking about democracy and hyper-inclusive democracy is not working, is I vote for like a Heinlein way of doing this.
Yes.
Like the Starship Troopers method.
Yes.
Right.
Explain. I'm not familiar with this. Go ahead.
Okay, so Heinlein wrote this book, Starship Troopers, and there's two essentially classes in a society, and this is going back to Tyler's point about disenfranchising as many people as possible. By disenfranchising, I mean taking away their ability to vote, not making them sad.
I'd be sad if I couldn't vote.
In the book, there are citizens and there are something else.
Citizens and civilians.
And in order to win the right to vote, you have to serve in their military.
No, not necessarily military. It was public service.
Public service. There's like a Peace Corps kind of thing, an agricultural corps, and Space Marines, basically.
Yeah, Marnius Calgar, all that.
But the part that I wanted to bring up with that is there's a point in the book where they talk about what voting actually means, and it's the willingness to use force against others, because force is what derives power. So my opinion is that if anyone's going to employ force against other people through voting, they should have to be willing to pull the trigger themselves. If they can't do that, they don't get to vote.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a fundamental concept of authority that a lot of people don't understand. And obviously, this is a fundamental concept that could easily be taught in schools, but they had to make room for fisting, of course. So all authority is derived from the use of force or the threat of force. If you are receiving a directive from somebody, like they have two ways of getting you to comply. It's either to convince you that it's in your best interest or to coerce you. So it's either in your best interest objectively, or they're just going to point a gun at you and make you do it. And
that's the thing. You can have like a moral argument that this is the best way to deal with something, or you can force people to do it under threat of violence.
Yeah.
Well, then I think this ties in nicely to a quote that Marty had a couple of weeks ago about, be wary of the person using emotional argument, something like that.
Yeah.
That's how you coerce people.
Yeah, I mean, that is a method of coercion, is shame. You create a culture where they're obsessed with signaling. Your social status is more important than being objectively right. or any fundamental principle of justice. You just want to be liked by your peers. Then you can get a lot of people to do things that even they recognize as being against their own, moral code of ethics, because they're more concerned about being liked. They're more concerned about their peers' approval, their family's approval than anything else. So you can shame people into compliance.
Yeah,
and that's one of the aspects of the authoritarian kind of regime that we're dealing with now.
What's kind of interesting is something I'm just kind of thinking about it right now with that comment is, while that's the method that's being used to control us, that was also historically and evolutionarily the method that was used to assimilate new people into societies and into tribes and things like that.
Yeah,
and that's
one of us.
Exactly. It was through social shame and social pressure was what was used to assimilate and cause sort of like actions.
Yeah.
And they're simultaneously using that same mechanism to stop people from utilizing social pressures to cause assimilation.
Yeah, and so a single tear rolls down my cheek for every lost noble culture, that lost the culture in actual like military wars. But it's just like it's survival of the fittest. There's a finite amount of resources on the planet. You either win or you lose, and we shouldn't really waste any time trying to resurrect failed cultures. It is what it is, and we had a positive social force that encouraged people that we were willing to take in. And I shouldn't say we. I wasn't alive in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. But
wait, you're not the Highlander?
No, I'm not. But there was a willingness to take people in and assimilate and be like, look, we've got this great idea. We've got this great functioning model that works, and it allows us to dominate the whole planet. Come be a part of it. I mean, that's pretty great. That's pretty awesome. That's something that's really unique in world history. And it worked for a while until things became too comfortable, and then we had liberal cat ladies say that this is a travesty and it robs them of their dignity. And if you have brown skin, you have an obligation to behave a certain way. Shame on you for being like these other people. And then now we have all these like social problems. And all we needed to do was muzzle the cat ladies.
Yeah. Disenfranchise them all.
Disenfranchise the cat ladies. We'd have a lot less problems.
All right.
Somehow we need to make it so that if you own a cat, you have to own a gun.
Yeah, well, look, I'm obviously joking.
Slowly, yeah.
There's thinly laced jokes in there, but there's also a grain of truth. I mean, you have to see where I'm coming from. We had a functioning model here for trying to create a nation out of a group of people who didn't necessarily all come from the same place. Like, I don't know Andrew's background. I'm assuming English. Marty's Dutch. Gavin, I know you half Armenian and Scottish.
Albanian, Scottish, and Welsh.
Albanian, Scottish, and Welsh. Rachel is Hungarian, Italian, and Irish, and I'm Anglo-Scottish, right? And we've all coalesced around a pretty uniform set of ideas about how to get something done, and that's because of a common identity that's been forged.
Yeah, and I mean, historically, if Andrew is English background, me being Welsh and Scottish, we should hate each other.
Yeah, you should.
Oh, I'm perpetually at war with myself because I'm English and Irish.
And I should commit suicide or something.
Yeah, I mean.
So I part of that what helps though is that all of the cultures have sort of Judeo-Christian beliefs, and so while they had differences in the past in terms of territorial issues, their fundamental belief systems were relatively similar.
Well, no, that's a cop-out. That's a modern concept that didn't exist probably even like 60 years ago, where Protestants and Catholics were like, they wouldn't even marry,
Irish
Catholics.
Yeah.
The religious wars fought in Europe, led to the slaughter of millions of people.
Ireland
to say that we all get along because we're all white is like, that's a totally modern development. That's something that hasn't existed historically. That's something that's emerged organically.
So what I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is when you all come to Canada, it's easier to work together and create a society and create rules of a society when the rules of your two societies are similar.
Okay, so I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying that diversity kind of makes it more difficult to run a society.
Well, yeah, it does.
But no, I agree with you. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to be a
Like
dick.
look at. I mean, I don't know if I've never seen this data for Canada, but like look at the U.S. Look at crime rates versus diversity, and look at state by state. And the states that are the most diverse typically have the highest crime rates.
Suffer the highest crime
And,
rates.
and it's not being blamed
It's
on.
like in a homogenous society that you have more shared values. And
Exactly.
Yeah. You've got shared values. You've got cultural uniformity. You have higher trust. There are all sorts of benefits to it. And then there are the benefits that are sold to us under imported and often forced diversity, and that's that you can go to the food court and get chow mein or whatever, and whatever. I really don't care. I just you need to be free to live your life as you please. That's the only thing. But now, as we see, you can't even start a business without the government parachuting in and saying no, you have to hire whoever.
Yeah, and when you look at other societies that have assimilated well, they do have similar core values.
Yeah, that's the great point. Actually, great point.
Yeah, that's the point that I wanted to make, Marty. Is I don't really care so much where they're from or what their ethnic origin.
Yeah, I don't care what
color they are or what, as long as they're willing to get along, and we all believe roughly the same thing. Killing people is bad in general. There are people that need to be killed. But as long as we can agree on which people those are.
Yeah.
Well, that's why
as
you
long as we
look
can
at
agree
it
to
as
the concept of property, right? Like if I own this and this is mine, and you own that and that is yours, and we don't, steal from one another, I don't really the rest of it doesn't bother me as long as we have that kind of core construct where we agree on what is essentially morality.
Well, that ideal that you're describing quickly disappears when you have professors from the University of Victoria saying that one group of people in society are bloodthirsty racists that
stole canoes from the Dutch.
They propagate a culture of oppression, denying the Dutch of their dignity and the cultural worth that they are rightfully afforded for inventing the canoe 8,000 years ago. But they create the conflict. BC. They create the conflict where it didn't exist.
Dude, the boulevard in front of my house on the main drag there, man, has so many tulips in it, and there's not one sign that says these are from the Dutch.
Which is shitty.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point the Dutch used.
I never knew until today. Now I'm pissed.
Yeah, as you should be. As you should be. That is your
shitty
cultural heritage, Marty. And
if you were to look at Canadian history and stretch it out over a board, or put it in a crown, that would be the Canadians and their actions in the Netherlands. That's one of the centerpieces, the crown jewel of what we've done as a nation.
In terms of militarily, like World War II.
Well, I mean, ultimately, a nation's greatness is measured by its military feats. I mean, look at history. Yeah. You don't remember. Do you remember some great act the Romans passed to grant equal rights to Germans? No, you don't. I mean, you remember their conquest of Gaul. You remember Caesar's march on Rome. These are the things that are remembered, and these are the high watermarks of every society, is their ability to project their values onto other people.
Yeah.
Canada won't be remembered for bringing in 400,000 refugees.
Exactly. Canada will be remembered for that. No. You know what will be remembered? What the new society that the refugees established will remember their conquest of this weak country that paid them to take it over.
Yeah.
I mean, Canadians certainly aren't going to remember the conquest that Canadians made, because the Liberals even fought to not allow the flag that they flew at Vimy Ridge to be flown from the monument for Vimy Ridge.
It's insane.
Because that was considered inappropriate.
Yeah.
Fuck's sakes.
But Andrew, you should call the episode "The Triggering," because
yeah, this was a rough one.
Holy hell!
Looking at the show notes,
every day.
It's a pretty light one, but then it got pretty heavy pretty quick.
You roll out of bed, and it's just how do you face the world? Just everything that's being crammed down your throat is just total BS.
Speaking of which, we have feedback.
We do have feedback.
Well, let's.
Nice.
Is it about the boner pills?
Smooth segue.
We're not at feedback yet, but that's a good try.
All right.
I did actually put in a really light main topic today because I didn't expect we'd get bogged down in like gender and racial studies equality and stealing canoes from the Dutch. But there you go.
But you know what? It matters. Like, what would you say the government's #1 priority is right now?
Staying in power.
Well,
And
okay.
spending
And how are they doing that? How are they
And
doing
scoping
that?
out what the Dutch are doing so we can steal more of their technology.
I mean, honestly, like, screw the Dutch, right?
I want to see Trudeau wearing his wooden shoes.
He's probably got a wooden dildo.
He's certainly not going to be found with a finger in a dike.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Because
What I was
I was
what I
making a
was
Captain Wing
planning
joke
for-
on that one.
my main topic this week was vehicle emergency first aid kit type thing, because I have an anecdote that led me to find out that I'm woefully underprepared for certain emergencies.
Sorry, did you say this
From
is the main
something.
topic?
Yeah, that was the original plan. This was the main topic, but that's okay. We'll just do it in like 25
All right.
minutes.
Rachel's bailing.
Good night, Rachel.
Yeah,
Going
now the boring stuff. Hopefully she's not giving birth. Yeah.
I was gonna say she's
No,
going to
no.
go on a child there.
All right. So hopefully nice and light. We
Thanks
can
for joining,
work for a
Rachel.
little bit, and then we'll do our feedback and get out of here. So I was recently traveling home from an event on 2 rural highways that intersected, and I was the first responder on a 2-vehicle collision, both with a driver in each vehicle, no other occupants. And I learned that I'm woefully underprepared for those sort of events because on my work bag I do have a first aid kit, but it's basically enough to deal with one person. And I'm glad that in this case there was nobody that was like severely injured, and there wasn't like, mutations or anything.
Yeah.
But just some of the things that I took away. It was at dinner time, so it quickly turned into dusk, and I didn't have road flares or reflective vests. So I was actually kind of concerned about my safety as other vehicles were traveling by. And I didn't have enough stuff to deal with like massive hemorrhaging for more than 1 or possibly 2 people. So I want to talk to you guys about vehicle first aid emergency kit kind of things.
If anyone that follows us on the Facebook saw the post about today's episode, that is my actual kit that I do keep in my car.
Do you want to walk us through what you have and why?
If I'm gonna look at your show notes because I think that covers a lot of it, because I've got a lot of random stuff in there, but I've got some specific stuff. So I think the SKS rifle, that's definitely a Tyler. I think we can cover that.
Oh, you want me to talk about my kit?
I was
But,
going to ask Gavin, but let's do Tyler's because Gavin's just reading Tyler's list.
Yeah, I made notes.
and I'll-
I made notes. I came prepared.
I know vaguely what's in mine, and I was gonna pull it out of the car, but then I was worried that if I did that, I wouldn't put it back in, and I might need it tomorrow for whatever reason.
Well, I thought maybe I would tailor this, specifically to winter time, just because we're kind of getting into that time of year.
Yeah, you definitely need it a lot more at this time of year than in the summer. But
Yeah, because the elements can kill you. In the
Yeah.
summertime, that's a pretty low risk. So I always keep an SKS rifle in my vehicle. There are a number of reasons why. I mean, number one is cost. The rifle is cheap, and so should it be somehow like irreparably damaged, being handled and bounced around, I'm not out a lot of money. But at the same time, it's a very robust, platform, and it being a Soviet design, it's designed for cold weather, which is one thing I can't stress enough. It's a cold weather climate we live in here. Minus 20, minus 25. That's a reality that we all have to deal with. Some of us more than others, but it happens. So if you're going to have a gun, you want it to function every time you pull the trigger, no matter what time of year it is. I've had an SKS rifle lock up, ice up. The oil froze, and I had to open it with the heel of my boot. I've had it happen. I know that the 7.62x39 ammunition that's at least manufactured to Soviet spec, I don't know about the Chinese, but the Soviet spec stuff will function it up to like minus 50. It will function normally. So this is all things that I consider when I'm looking at my truck gun. So I know it's going to perform in cold weather. And then, of course, then it's also adequate to take down any predator, man or beast. I always have the means to make fire. Lighter fluid, gasoline, whatever, matches, lighter, road flares. So the road flares double up, right? You can use them to signal. You can use them to illuminate where you are, like your vehicle, so nobody else plows into you. But you can also use them to start a fire if need be. That's great. Small shovel is also good. You get stuck in snow, you can dig yourself out, or you can dig yourself a small fire pit if need be, if you're stuck there for a little while. A blanket is great. You're stuck in your vehicle. It's cold. If you can wrap yourself up in a blanket, you'll at least be comfortable. And change clothes. If you get wet, moisture is your enemy in cold weather. So a change of clothes is really something that I consider to be important in the vehicle. Now, like just even creating this list just for this topic, I came across things that it's not that I didn't consider them. It's just that certainly never considered them to be enough of a priority to actually consciously include in the vehicle each morning. And that's a complete first aid kit.
Yeah.
And typically I'm never more than 15 minutes away from my home. And I'm, probably never more than 10 minutes from a hospital, but that's only typical. I do occasionally travel, kind of off the beaten path. So a first aid kit would definitely be something that I should have in my vehicle. And it's not just for my sake. I know Andrew had his situation where he was first responder. You got to have the tools, you got to have the equipment to help people.
Well, that was kind of my thing. Was I rolled up and grabbed my work bag. I mean, I've got an IFAC on my work bag, but like,
that's good for one. Yeah,
that's good for me. And like, I rolled up, and if this was like 2 minivans with families in it, I don't have stuff to deal with infants or small children.
Yeah,
I don't have stuff to deal with multiple adults.
Yeah,
and
you're one guy. I mean, what can you do? You roll around, you buy an ambulance at auction, just roll around in that. I mean, like there's a standard. You're one man, but
but there's a certain having 2 or 3 tourniquets doesn't take up a whole lot of space.
Sure,
but potentially that could save several people.
And that was kind of the thing I was looking at again. Was in my case, I might have 4 people in the truck.
Yeah.
Even if I get into a wreck just on my own in the truck.
Good point.
It would be good to deal, because again, I'm self-centered and white privileged and all that.
Take care of yourself first, and everybody else comes second. Yeah,
exactly. So I might have 4 family members in the vehicle. So I feel that I should at least have enough to deal with that, and then so much the better if I can play Good Samaritan and help save somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I have a fairly robust first aid kit in my car, especially if I'm in the Jeep. But my bag that I keep in my car is more or less my, when people talk about their go bag, their 72-hour bag and all of that, that's what I just keep in my trunk at all times. And when I move cars, because I have a couple, I move that along with it. So, I mean, I typically, like Tyler, will keep a rifle. I usually have my VZ, not my SKS. Just preference. Definitely the means to make fire. I've got a lighter in there. I've got matches in there. I also have, fire steel just in case, that the lighter or matches don't work. I've also keep, I think I have 2 road flares in there, but I also went and picked up those little sterno things that you use to keep platters warm and stuff like that at dinner parties. Just because those will burn for a very long time. So you can use them as some sort of flare if you run out of flares, or if you need a small heat source or something, or if you're going to be stuck there for a while and you need to, heat up some food or boil some water.
You just burn your spare tire.
Or you could do that. I would use that as a last resort in case I can get
Make
the
sure
car
you keep
going.
your windows all rolled up tight while you're doing that to keep the heat in.
The fatty tissue of your dead passengers has a lot of energy. Probably would burn very well.
I also keep 2 liters of water in the car. I keep a couple of MREs in the car, a blanket, a tarp, flashlights.
Okay, so I got a couple of follow-up questions. Is that more or less your list?
I mean, I duct tape. I keep some paracord in there. Needle and thread. I don't have a shovel, but I have a small little hatchet that kind of works for both.
You guys are more extensive than me, for sure. Like for the time, I usually have, extra clothes and that kind of stuff. But the one thing I kind of carry is, no one's mentioned, is I always have jumper cables. I always have rope, and I always have a tow strap or a rescue strap.
Yeah,
with me as well.
I don't have a tow strap, but I've got jumper cables, and then I recently picked up one of those like power pack things that you can jump your car on your own.
Yep.
Because I had I've actually had it where my battery died and I was stuck sort of in the middle of nowhere, like not that far out of the middle of nowhere. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be here all night. But like people coming by was not that frequent. And like CAA was still like an hour away. So now I can just like boost my own car.
Yeah. I had neglected to mention jumper cable. So that I use that more often to help people than myself. Although not at Marty's.
But, I've used them more often to help other people than myself, but I have had to use them a few times for myself. And then, like just the other day, I actually pulled like a winter parka, gloves, and snow pants out of my closet to put into my trunk so that I have that stuff, because I have had my car break down in winter. And even though I was like in the city, I was like right near Kipling Station. So it's not like I'm going to, die there, but I mean, you're stuck waiting around for your tow truck and it gets cold. And I typically, like, going to work, I don't want to wear like a thick winter parka just like getting in and out of the car to go to work. So I just keep the spare in the truck or in the trunk so that it's there when I need it, but hopefully I don't need it.
Yeah.
All right. So I have some follow-up questions because I want to make my truck a little bit more robust for you guys. So I'm looking at adding some things to my kits.
Winch.
Yeah.
What's that? Wings?
Winch.
Yes.
You need to add a winch.
A deep fryer and wings. Yeah.
I don't know that a winch is in my budget, but I wanted to ask you guys about toe straps. Like, do you think 10,000-pound toe strap is sufficient, or do I need to go heavier?
That should be right.
There's also a difference between, I'm trying to get the names, toe strap and rescue strap are two different things. Yes. I remember correctly? You for what you're looking for, I think you would want to get a rescue strap.
Does that let me rescue myself, or does that let somebody else pull me out of a ditch?
Both.
Nothing will let you really, you can't really rescue yourself because you're not pulling a car.
Right.
No, but if somebody else is there, they can pull you out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and basically, it's just, I think that, for understand, the difference is static and dynamic. So your toe strap is a static, and your rescue strap is dynamic. So when you're going to pull somebody else out, instead of there being like a large sort of impulse force, it's spread out because the cord has a bit of stretch to it.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who is a fan of the show, anybody who climbs will know the difference between a static and a dynamic rope.
Yeah.
All right.
Any of you guys climb? I don't know. You guys seem to pick up on that right away.
Yeah, no, I do.
That was why I used the term static and dynamic. Climbing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes a huge difference too. Like, if you're talking about like the kilonewton force on it, like, I mean, if you have a static rope and you drop something on it, like that's gonna snap like a twig.
Yeah, anyone who's gone through engineering, like impulse force is much higher than.
Yeah. I mean, even just a little bit of stretch, even from like a small height of a particular weight or shock to it, is a huge force on that. So the little bit of stretch sometimes helps for that. I mean, sometimes it can be really dangerous having that. So that's kind of why you need to pick and choose. But
okay, and then Gavin, you said you keep water in your vehicle. It's Canada and it's cold in the winter. How do you keep your water from being ice?
I keep sterno in the car so that if I need to melt it, I can.
You're just gonna heat it back up. You got like a metal canteen cup or something to heat it up in, or how's that work?
Yeah, I keep like a little metal cup in the car so that, and like MREs and stuff. So yeah, little tiny camping bowl that I can then just place over the heat to melt it if I needed to.
Water was
typically it's in my trunk, so it doesn't really freeze unless it's like super cold and I leave my car for a couple of days without driving it around.
Water is something that I neglected to mention. I don't leave the house without my Camelback full of 3 liters of water. I don't typically wear it, but if my car were to break down, then I would just wear the Camelback, and my body heat should be sufficient to keep it from freezing. I would just wear it under my clothing.
Yeah, I mean, like, water is not something, like, if you're not traveling long distances, water is not something you really need a whole lot of.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's probably the one thing that I use the most out of my pack than anything else, because it's like, you never know, right? Like, man, I'm just really thirsty and I don't want to stop to go buy something. Oh, look, I've got 2 liters of water in my car.
Yeah, but in terms of, like, surviving for a night or something comfortably, there's no heavy industry where I live. I wouldn't hesitate to drink melted snow water, even unboiled.
Yeah, I mean, if you needed to, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep a little bit to at least get me by to the point where I can. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've done winter camping and had to make my own shelter and stuff like that. So I mean, I know that I'm fine wherever I break down.
Yeah.
But.
Well, you know what? Interesting. I mean, maybe we can kind of come back to it midwinter. But my needs, for what I would consider to be an adequate, supply setup, are going to dramatically change in a few days, right?
Yeah.
Now I got dependents. It's not just about me. And obviously Rachel's capable of pulling her own weight, but now there's other supplies that need to be considered. And I'm sure it's a reality for many of the listeners that they've got families to take care of. So that could add an interesting, facet to the subject.
Yeah. I guess there's a whole other set of stuff you got to carry around with a baby all the time, right?
Yeah. Shit wipes.
Yeah.
The shovel isn't just for digging your car out. It's for digging a latrine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Like, I even have a couple of, like, colored smoke bombs in my car, so that if I ever needed to signal somebody, with that, I could. But, like, mine's a little bit, I don't know, maybe overly robust for certain things. But, I mean, I use mine as my, like, if shit ever hit the fan, and not just, oh, my car broke down. Yeah. Like, that's the backpack I keep in my car. So it's got everything that I need for, like, 2-3 days. Maybe a day, 2 days of me and one other person would be able to survive off of that pack without having to resupply. And if I have my rifle, then I'm good for.
Let me ask you guys something. For your packs, what are you guys running for packs? Are you running, like $25 packs you pick up at TSC, or are you running good stuff?
Mine's somewhere middle of the road. It's not super expensive, but it's not like a $20 pack. Like, it's got a waist belt, it's got padded straps that, like, if I needed to hike 20 miles in this thing, I could. Yeah,
okay, because I just wanted to kind of inject this philosophy. I don't believe in owning something that's too nice to use. But at the same time, if you need to count on something to work properly in, adverse conditions, then only the best will suffice. So, for example, the SKS is the truck gun, but the gun that I take with me, like, in non-rushed circumstances, in planned circumstances, is a Swiss Arms. That gun goes from point A. This gun has been from here to Quebec City to Oakville and back 1,000 times. This gun goes with me everywhere because it's the best. I know it will work. Ice, rain, sleet, snow, warm weather, cold weather, it's going to work and it's going to perform. It's going to be accurate. And okay, yeah, it's an expensive rifle, but why buy an expensive rifle if not to use it and to be able to depend on it? I didn't buy it for it to be a wall hanger. If you're going to spend the money, the value is in its performance, and that's why it's there.
That makes sense to me. As far as the packs, the work bag that I carry with me every day, that's like my primary bag, is a 511 Rush 12. Mm-hmm. And then my 3-day pack is the 511 Rush 24, which I know sounds silly, but I don't keep. I'm not going to call it extra stuff, but I don't keep stuff that I'm going to have either in the office or in my home, and I've only got to go 40 kilometers one way or the other to get to where I have more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I really have redundancy on in my pack is, like, my pack has I got an extra, because it's all molly webbing on the outside. So I got an extra first aid kit that's one of those tearaways for the outside of the pack. And then I keep a larger first aid kit in the car as well. That's just got more, like, Band-Aids, like, not necessarily, like, essentials, but, like, the stuff that you go through often.
Right, I got you.
So that I don't need to, like, go to my 72-hour pack to, like, oh, someone's cut the finger. You know, so I don't have to worry about, you know, oh, I've used something out of that, I've got to, like, restock that. I can go to my other kit for stupid boo-boos and little things.
Yeah, that
so
makes
for
sense.
me, I don't have, because I'm in the truck, I don't have a lot of storage. I just keep everything sort of, I don't have a big pack. I keep everything as small, just as their individual items, and I have them kind of tucked in behind the seats, underneath the seat, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way of doing it, and I'd say by default, that's generally the way my stuff is assembled in the truck, kind of scattered about, because a lot of the stuff is dual purpose. It's not just for emergencies. I just use it day to day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's as a matter of convenience, that's the way things end up.
Definitely, I'm woefully. I have no first aid supplies whatsoever, and it's not something I really gave much thought to until tonight.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I am. I have a few basic emergency supplies, but actually a complete first aid kit. My first aid kit is sitting in my range bag. It's not in my truck.
Yeah, see,
actually, I think ours is with our climbing equipment, but I don't think we take it any other time.
That's right.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing I was thinking about, was like, okay, so I have, like, the bag that I carry around for work, and I have the bag that I, like, carry around in case I need to get home from work, right? If I've got to, like, ditch the truck for whatever reason. But I don't have a lot of stuff in the truck, like, the truck's got a lot of storage capacity. I feel like I should be more prepared when I'm the first guy to roll up on a multi-vehicle collision, so that I can, get a medal for saving babies.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one is your first aid kit then. Like, that's,
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. There's definitely some things that I'm going to put that are going to be readily accessible. Like, I'm looking at a better way to store some tourniquets to just leave in the truck. Same thing with, like, either Elias or Israeli bandages, because I have that stuff in my pack, and I have that stuff in my work bag, but I don't have stuff that just, like, stays in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So if I talk about my Jeep, and it's in my Jeep, is like, that would be my go-to vehicle if I ever needed to, like, get the hell out of town. So I have those, like, molly strap visors in the Jeep. So I have, like, on top of the pack and everything else I would normally put in the back and just leave there. With that, I have a flashlight. I have a knife with a seatbelt cutter and a glass break. I've got a couple of glow sticks and a lighter on the driver's side. And then on the passenger side, I have a tourniquet. I have shears and a small tearaway first aid kit with basic supplies that if it's ever, like, I need to grab something super quick, it's on the sun visor.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The other thing I was thinking about was some sort of a toolbox or something similar, a tote to put in the bed of the truck, to put in things like my tow strap and a little shovel and a hatchet, and, the other odds and sods that I don't need it in the cab because I don't have to get it in a hurry because I'm not, like, running out of my vehicle to go and, like, put out a fire on another vehicle and then, like, render first aid. Oh, I do have a fire extinguisher in the truck. I should mention that.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't. I used to have one in the Jeep, but I needed to get it charged, so I pull it out. But that's one thing I don't have.
I do have a little.
DeWalt makes a nice toolbox. The Fat Max. There are two versions of it. One's bigger than the other. It's got the waterproof seal all around. I carry most of my tools for work in a various assortment of those boxes in the bed of the truck in the rain, and none of my tools get wet.
I was thinking something along that lines, because I do have a bed cover on the truck, but if I could just, strap down something at the anchor point at the tailgate so that it's there.
Yeah. These boxes have locking points, so you could lock them to a tie-down point in your bed.
Yeah,
easily.
And that's what I was thinking. That way I have, if I need to get a toe strap out or if I have to get a shovel out, like one of those little, I'm thinking like an entrenching tool, like an e-tool.
Yeah.
That way it's all in one box and it's all together.
Yeah, it's convenience. You're not, searching for it, but it's still
exactly, and it's
tucked
all
away
together
and not,
convenient.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I'm thinking for the truck. That way I have my, holy crap, there's stuff that's on fire, or there are people that are, the important red liquid is leaking out of them and we need to stop that, or like, great, I've managed to put myself in a ditch and now I have to like recover my vehicle somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys are probably be shocked by this, but my go bag is bright red and not multicam. Just so that
you own something that's not multicam.
I am genuinely shocked.
Just so that if there's ever an emergency and I'm not the one going it, I can go get the big fucking bright red bag. Like, just get it. If I ever need to run, I can smear mud on it to hide the color.
That makes a good point, though. What do you guys use for signaling stuff? Gavin, you mentioned glow sticks, and I think, did somebody say flares, road flares?
Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff. So I have road flares in mine. I have colored smoke. I've also got glow sticks that I would use more for, like, if I ever come up on a multi-person accident in low lighting, I can use that for triage. Like, who needs to get looked after first? Snap a couple of, like, red ones for the people that are, like, near death or whatever, right? Like, if you needed to do that.
Oh, I got you. And color code your casualties.
Here's something I don't think anyone's mentioned, and that's a cell phone charger.
I guess that's a good point. I actually keep an inverter in my truck.
Yeah.
Just because I occasionally work out of the truck, so I need to be able to charge the phone and the laptop and all that. So that's a good point, Marty. I actually do keep a 200-watt inverter in the truck.
Nice.
Yeah, the battery pack booster thing that I have has a little USB port I can plug my phone in if I need to. And then I do have a small solar panel if I ever feel like I need to. If I'm ever going away for a few days, I will bring that, but that's not something I typically carry.
And for those of you who understand electronics, I mean, if you're really in a pinch, you can rig up a way to charge your phone using AA batteries. I can't do it on the podcast. I can't tell you how to do it, but generally your phones will charge on 5 volts and like 800 milliamps.
Yeah.
For those who really understand electronics, you could do it off your 12-volt battery too.
Yeah.
Yes, you could. Yep.
Or a potato.
Nope.
You can't get enough voltage out of a potato.
No.
Nope.
No.
Gavin doesn't understand electronics.
What about a lemon? Wouldn't that work? Does that get enough power?
Potato won't.
No.
I don't think a lemon will either. I don't think your voltage is high enough.
What about 6 potatoes?
It's not even your fault. The amount of current
Yeah.
you get. You're not doing anything with a potato or a lemon or.
Yeah.
But you do have a vehicle with a battery.
If you're bringing a lemon with you, just bring a goddamn battery.
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled a lot and I've been stuck at airports, so I have like 3 of those battery packs because I know.
So I have a lot of lemons.
Well, that too.
I take lemons to the airport.
Yeah.
Vitamin C is important, guys. You don't want to get scurvy when you're stranded.
That is actually a good point. You said you keep MREs in your car. Do you keep anything else to eat?
The ones I have are pretty well stocked. Like, it's the ones with like the soldier protein bars. It's got it's a pretty big, beefy MRE. And I think I have 3 or 4 of them in there. So that should be plenty of food for at least a little bit.
Yeah, that's probably 4 days worth of food, because if your MREs are anything like the MREs that we issue to our military, that's like 4,000 calories a piece.
Yeah, they have like a main, an appetizer, and like a dessert, and like.
Yeah, you can stretch those out.
Yeah, if I needed to, I could. And then I think like if I've ever not finished something from one of them, I'll like tuck it in the bag usually. So like I'll have like extra electrolyte powder and stuff like that in there, and the hot chocolate, because that's actually pretty tasty. But
I think that's probably pretty good. I think I've got a better idea about what I'm going to do. I'm kind of putting my plans together to upgrade the truck a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, on Saturday, if you want to pick through my kit, by all means, you're welcome to. As is any
things I like.
As it will any listener that shows up that wants to see what's in my kit, by all means, please ask. I'll show you.
I want to try one of these hot chocolates now.
Yeah.
All right.
There's some delicious snacks in there occasionally.
Just before we close it out, Tyler, do you have any other thoughts about that? I think we pretty well killed this one.
Yeah, no, it's pretty well killed. I didn't expect we'd get into this much detail. Yeah, I mean, the granola bars is pretty standard for me to cram into my vehicle. You know, all the things that we talked about.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is stuff that we probably all do that we just don't really think about because it's just day-to-day commonplace.
Because it's good sense, you know, just to have it in the vehicle.
So that's the thing is we all do this day to day, and then it took me coming up on what I thought was going to be a pretty major accident to realize that I didn't have some things that made me feel really dumb. Like it got dark out, and I realized people can't see me on the side of the highway.
Yeah, I don't carry a reflective vest, but I mean, I suppose I could just use a glow stick if I needed to.
You know, I mean, that's why the people they recommend if you're doing a 72-hour bag is if you want to see if you have what you need, go out in the bush for 72 hours.
Yeah.
You'll find out what you're missing.
Yeah. Or even 6 hours sometimes, so you can figure out oh crap, I need this.
Yeah, you know, this is something that Matt and I tried to do on our show. We tried to do a 72-hour camping thing, and it was individual, wasn't supposed to be coordinated or anything like that, but we just never found the time to do it. And you know, it was something I was really interested in doing, and I had a lot of listener interest expressed in it as well. In disappointment when we never got around to it. But if we could make it happen, you know, amongst at least some of the panelists for this show to go and do a 72-hour ruck, just go out into the woods, crown land, whatever, and then just you know video it and just say these are the shortages. This is what we really wish we brought this.
And that's kind of why I wanted to walk through this stuff with you guys, because it took me, you know, being on the side of the highway in the dark to go, I really wish people could see me right now. It would make me feel a lot better.
Yeah,
no, I would love to do that. I mean, I was fortunate in my high school, we had an outdoor ed program, and one of the things that we did was outdoor survival skills and everything, and for 24 hours, we had to be on our own. We were never that far away from people that if we shouted and screamed, people could come find us, but we were graded on how well we survived in the woods for 24 hours with minimal supplies. We were not allowed to use a tent. We had to build our own shelter.
Yeah, you don't need to go, 20 kilometers off the path. As soon as you're off the path, you'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, we were just out of eyesight when we did it, and the hardest part with all of that is the mental component, the physical needs and everything. I mean, that's not easy depending on where you are, but the mental component of being able to fend for yourself is always the hardest part.
Okay, so challenge for the panel then, since Tyler's already agreed me to this Tough Mudder nonsense. I guess we should all make an agreement that we're going to do this a 72-hour bug out at some point and test our shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can always do that up at my buddy's hunt camp if we want. It's not that far away, but then that way we're away from everything. All right, let's figure out a way to make that happen.
It has to have decent enough cell reception or a hardline internet connection to do a live cast every night.
Yeah, it has decent enough cell reception now, unfortunately, which was kind of the one nice thing about the hunt camps.
Dude, I got an awesome data plan. We can make it happen.
I mean, even if we're just on the property but we don't use anything, it's enough space and there's enough resources there that we could build fires with sticks and stuff like that and put tents up and stuff like that without using the cabin, without actually having to be out on crown land where we may encounter weirdos.
All right, well, I think it could be a good time. I mean, even
that's a good idea.
We'll see. Maybe we can all get together for a turkey hunt and do it.
I'm in.
Or use the cabin and just go up there because that sounds like a good time.
Yeah, well, we could do that too, and then just make it look like we're Yeah, we
We'll do a bigger grill style.
So we're gonna make Gavin drink his pee on the podcast. Awesome.
What if I just make like beer look like pee and just drink that? I mean,
So we're getting American beer. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have the
Damn.
king of beers right now.
either way, I think we should do both. Or
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit rapid fire feedback and start wrapping this up. This is going to be a long one.
This is not rapid.
Yeah, no, that was a catchy name when I was coming up with catchy names, but
It's like World War I standard issue rifle feedback.
yeah, I guess I'll read it and you guys just start interjecting, and then
Just get through it, and then we'll go through
Okay,
it.
yeah. We do it one.
let's do something
Rip,
super juicy.
rip it off like a Band-Aid, man.
No,
Just get through
I'll
it.
rip the whole thing off, and then we can go back and address whatever you guys want to address.
All right.
So this is an email from new listener. Hello there. I recently stumbled across your podcast, and after listening to a few episodes, decided to write in. It is always a wonderful thing to see fellow Canadians creating excellent content, especially when those same Canadians are giving the perspective on the world that is often unique. There are a few instances of things said during the past couple of episodes that have left me with a bit of a sour taste, however. I will give specific examples, but generally they can all be boiled down to the following pattern. A, I'm a conservative Canadian. B, everything liberals and other lefties do is wrong. C, therefore I'll complain about them at every chance, but especially for doing the same stupid things the conservatives did previously but didn't get away with as much because that's not fair.
Okay, quick interjection then.
Nope, we're doing the whole thing.
Damn it.
This pattern truly puzzles me for a number of reasons. It's perfectly fine to support one political party over another if they most closely align with your views at the time. Heck, I voted for each three main parties past for various reasons, but only a sheep agrees 100% of the time with any particular party at the exclusion of all others. It seems silly to me to moan about the Liberals getting away with more than the Conservatives were able to when they did the same thing previously. Instead, shouldn't we be demanding more from all of our politicians rather than framing it as okay for my guy but not theirs? Similarly, when the issue of the Liberal proposed carbon tax came up, a tax that I agree is also probably not the best approach to fighting carbon emissions, the panel instead regressed into fighting over whether or not man-made climate change is real while parroting various Conservative Party sound bites on the matter. For a group that seems irked when progressives repeat the Liberal, NDP, or left-wing media outlets say, you sure don't mind doing the same thing for your party or right-wing media outlets like The Rebel. Pot calling the kettle black much. It's also legitimate scary that a group of otherwise seemingly well-educated and very intelligent individuals would disregard the worldwide scientific consensus on man-made climate change and instead opt to follow the talking points of those who aren't at all qualified but happen to share their political ideology. But I guess what do the people who have studied it know, right? They're only elite liberal, insert insult here, egghead scientists. I mean, when I'm not feeling well and I go to my doctor and he tells me something that doesn't fit my political ideology, I just try the next 90-some doctors until I find one that agrees. That's how science works, right? Before leaving that topic, even if man-made climate change is not a real thing, which again, very much is, the panel seemed to at least agree that climate change of some sort was happening. If any of the world's premier security and defense officials are to be believed, then this represents not only an environmental, health care, economic, and political issue, but also one of national security as well. Surely we could all agree that doing something, even the little bit that our country alone could do, try and offset the related downsides would be a good thing. No? All that said, I hope you don't consider this hate mail. It isn't meant to be. Also, don't think for a minute that I'm some lefty writing because you've insulted me. I'm not, and you haven't. If anything, I'm a socially liberal, as in stay out of my personal space. As in stay out of my personal life. Financially conservative, as in stop spending my money on stupid stuff. Independent. I guess you could think of me like a libertarian without the whole I'm going to let your house burn down because you didn't buy my shiny fire medallion crazy streak. I look forward to hearing a new episode from you and your panel's unique perspectives every week. All right. So the first thing I'd like to do before we start ripping this apart, because I feel that there may be some passionate responses. If you'd like to actually leave your name or email address in future feedback, I would happily invite you on the show to discuss this, because there are a few things that I think maybe need clearing up. But
How did you receive this feedback?
Through the feedback link on CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. You can give us feedback every week on the show by going to CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or emailing the show directly at Canadian shit.
Yeah, dude, I served that up to you. And you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Just shit all over it.
Yeah, I destroyed it. New listener, if you would like to get in touch with me, I know roughly who you are. I'll be able to figure it out from the email. If you could send me your email with your actual name, I would be happy to add you as a panelist, and you could come and give us your perspective on various topics.
All right, Tyler, you were
rip away.
Okay, yeah.
No, rip away. But Tyler, go ahead.
What I wanted to say was, this listener basically accused us of falling victim to groupthink, like this was a conservative panel, and we shielded for conservative talking points. So I'm going to say that this panel, I'm just speaking for myself here, but I think it is susceptible to groupthink, but it's self-aware groupthink, and we think it's hilarious.
Yeah, half of it is for the lulz.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to say that I'll give you an example of like earlier this episode we were criticizing immigration quite heavily. Here's a pro-immigration argument. Inflating the population allows the government to distribute the inflation that the Bank of Canada creates, so the population can keep track of how much value the government is stealing from them. There is one of the chief arguments for immigration. You need to keep blowing the population up so that as you keep printing more money, that's distributed amongst an ever-increasing number of consumers. That's one of the arguments for it. That's something a lot of people who are not well versed in economics and money supply and things like that, like, don't quite understand. Like, this is a huge point of it. If people aren't having enough babies, you need to prop up the population growth artificially, and that's one of the reasons for it. It has nothing to do in the interest of diversity or anything like that. That's a label they throw on money.
The government keeps spending our money per person. Our debt goes down if we increase the population. I mean, that's just simple math.
It's about burying the inflation. That's what it is. And then on the other thing was on the Liberals getting away with more than the CPC. Of course we complain about that because it isn't fair. And I would probably say that, it's definitely true that there is, I wouldn't say that even the panel is in favor of the CPC.
Well, okay, so I'm going to interject.
Hold on, I'm so close.
He's almost done.
I'm so close.
No, I'm totally going to cuck him right now.
I know that's not going to happen. So I was going to say that we hate the CPC less. I would say that's a mostly true statement.
Yes.
But we don't love them. But I would also say that if the CPC is in power, isn't it better to have a media that hates the governing party? Because doesn't that keep them more honest? Doesn't that keep the population more aware of what they're up to? Right now, we have a media party that's in bed with the governing party, and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, go ahead.
Yes. So to Tyler's point, I am wholeheartedly in agreement with that. And I've said it before on the show, and I think we've discussed this at length on a couple of episodes. The Conservative Party is not the friends of the panelists on, this panel. We maybe have had other panelists on where that's different, where they're, very vocally and actively involved with the Conservative Party.
Yes.
But that's not the four of us.
No.
Yeah. No, my MP is conservative, and I hate her.
Yeah. I was going to make a similar comment to Andrew. Like, the Conservative Party they're not our friend. And I know that one of the episodes specifically that the feedback is referring to, we did have another panelist on who was very, very much involved in the political polarity of the CPC. We did give them a few more passes than we would normally because we're not going to attack a guest we're not going to fully outright attack a guest as they're on the podcast.
Well, no, we're not going to attack any of the guests because we want people to come on. And I mean,
we can give them a bit of a pass more than we would normally. But for sure, the Conservative Party's implemented a shit ton of the last 8 years that I disagree with.
Yep.
They're not our friends, but right now they're the least of our enemies.
Well, they're exactly what Tyler said. We hate them the least, and I would actually argue that again, speaking about the four of us on tonight's panel, because we have definitely had some very left-wing people and some very conservative people on the panel. I wouldn't say right wing because that's what the media will label the four of us.
Yeah.
Right.
But
and right now, you don't hear us bashing the conservatives because the liberals are in power.
that's the other point.
We're reviewing the selections from the previous week's stories, and because the liberals have majority government right now, it's exclusively liberal.
Yeah, we're dealing with the news in real time, right?
The conservatives.
Now, I think that when we are reviewing the news, because this is a lot of the time we do current events on this show, and a lot of it is political events, because I don't agree with how our country is being driven into the ground. We do draw a lot of parallels between what the current party does and what the liberals do, which is something that we've talked about before with like the
reverse that and switch it.
Right?
Reverse that, yeah. The current party versus the conservatives, the previous conservatives.
I apologize.
Yeah,
drinking,
we got you. We got you. But yeah, well, but that's partly because that was the most recent other party that was in power.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, and the next one is like when we are, I think he said moaning, as he put it, that the media is not covering or ignoring issues that they hammered the conservatives for. Like, it's not that we're complaining the conservatives weren't able to get away with the same thing. We're against the thing that's happening. We're trying to point out the hypocrisy of the media coverage in Canada.
Yeah.
So like, I agree that what is bad for the liberals to do was bad for the conservatives. But for the media to come out and say that it's evil for the conservatives to have done this, but when the liberals do it, they celebrate it as a great thing. That is not an acceptable stance from our media.
Or like like when, what was it, Harper took photos with the pandas or whatever. People were like, what the hell is he doing? And then like Trudeau does it and they're like, oh my God, look, he's so cute with those pandas and his glorious shiny mane. Like, no, we think like, it's like, I mean, if the conservatives
and like, I understand that they would see that from the podcast because the podcast didn't exist while the conservatives were in power.
No,
so they've only seen us bash. They've only seen us bash liberals.
To be fair, it's so easy.
I mean, I can't speak for the rest of you except what I know about you guys personally. But as far as the public record goes, there isn't one of you guys criticizing the conservatives other than your personal Facebook pages. But to this,
we've bashed them a little bit on this show. I mean,
yes, but
they've just been able to do less dumb stuff lately.
I've
had a lot of complaints about their lack of getting anything accomplished when they had a majority.
I was just going to say that, to this listener, if they want to sift through the back catalog of my other show that we'll plug at the end of the episode, I expressed political opinions that are very critical of the Conservative Party when they were in power, and I can guarantee that none of the other members of this panel would disagree with them, or did disagree with them at the
Swiss
time.
Arms and Season 858 bands?
As an example, yeah.
I mean, to kind of go back to the groupthink thing a little bit with that, like, we do agree a lot on things because I think politically we all have very similar views.
Well,
but there have been topics where we have disagreed at least somewhat.
Yeah.
I think the disagreement makes for good content for us. I realize that the four of us are very like-minded.
We are, and
but like even earlier in today's podcast, when you guys referring to the fact that only people that are contributing should have a vote, I mean, that I made a couple comments about like that introduces whole new issues as well.
It does.
I didn't want to get into it because that's just way too big of a topic for the podcast. But
that could be
creates an incentive on the voting public to create a system where as few people.
We'll do a show on how we disenfranchise the people that need to be disenfranchised.
There definitely. I mean, even amongst us who generally agree, there's varying levels.
Sure. I'll tell you how it's done, Andrew. Quickly and indiscriminately.
See, we may not agree 100%. It's still funny.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, that's one thing that I don't think this listener is quite picked up on yet. And you just self-described new listener, right? And we are shitlording a little bit.
Yeah,
exactly.
There is a little bit of
All right.
Poking the bear.
I think we've covered that we don't like the conservatives.
We don't
so
like.
no.
I think it's a fair assessment to say we don't like politicians.
Yeah, I
But
certainly.
politics.
Yeah,
I mean, like, from
At least within the current climate.
well, I mean, I throughout my
I-
history, I've voted Liberal and I've voted Conservative. Never voted NDP because they're too far left for me. But I have voted the other two. But the only party that I've ever given money to is the Libertarian Party.
interesting. I can say that I've given money to both the Conservative and the Libertarian parties. Member currently of both. Although I have no plans to renew my membership with the Conservative Party unless Maxime Bernier wins the leadership nomination.
And that's despite their annoying phone
We
calls.
should have a conversation about that because
that's a show. We need to do that as a show.
That's probably a show. Yeah. But
That's
we should have a conversation about that later.
But I would just close by saying I cannot count the number of politicians that I genuinely endorse on one hand.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
count them on less than
Okay.
one hand.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's what I meant. I mean, I couldn't exceed one hand with the number of politicians I could genuinely endorse.
No, I think I can
So,
get 3 at the federal level.
Yeah.
I want to jump on now onto his next
Blaine
points,
Calkins.
and basically everything about that we mentioned about climate change in the past one.
So, yeah, start
I
clearing the
can't-
summary.
Okay, so I can't speak for the rest of the members of the podcast, but I'll kind of try and run through quickly like my own thoughts on it and kind of where we were on that podcast. So climate change, like all religions, can spark huge debates on both sides. And you know what? I just this isn't the medium for that. So like there's stats and charts and all that kind of shit that both sides can throw back and forth. These are important. People should review them, review that material, make their own decisions. But for this podcast, like just to try and get into pulling out facts and figures and shit like that, it's just not the right medium for it. So what I will say is like the general reason why I'm not yet convinced that man-made CO2 is the cause of global warming, and that's through my education, I was taught the scientific method. Kind of following a scientific method. In order for a theory to be proven, it must be able to make accurate predictions. And that's really the crux of the scientific method. And this is where the CO2 caused global warming has kind of fallen down. And if you look over the last decade, for example, CO2 emissions have risen exponentially, and we've seen no appreciable warming. This is kind of referred to as the pause or the stall in global temperatures, and there's been some scrambling to try and explain it, like kind of the heat being stored in the ocean or whatever. But if you look back 15 years ago, the predictions being made, they saw sort of exponential temperature increase along with the exponential carbon dioxide increase, and that just didn't happen. They saw sort of rising sea levels and increased hurricanes and polar ice melt, and instead we've seen no appreciable temperature increase. 2015, NASA reported the highest amount of polar ice on record. Sea levels have remained constant. And so basically, so far, they haven't had any ability to make accurate predictions. And so per the scientific method, if you make a prediction and it's in the actual results are in disagreement with your prediction, then your prediction must be dropped or modified.
Yeah.
So, I can understand based on like sort of media political presentation of global warming that it's difficult to think that, people are still skeptical of global warming. But to me, that's precisely why you should be skeptical of global warming. When science becomes politicized, it no longer has the freedom to make mistakes, modify, or drop a hypothesis.
Well, to say that there are no scientists speaking out and saying that global warming does not exist is false. Right. There are.
And that's the thing. It's like there's so many careers at stake. There's so much money at stake, tax dollars at stake on this. They're all banked on this theory. And so, and I'm not saying that because it's political, it's immediately not true, but you have to give it a lot more skepticism than you would otherwise.
the scientists, that are speaking out against it, are saying that climate change and global warming and everything exists. Like, you've got celebrities like David Suzuki that's like broadcast in every schoolroom across the province, and even further, like into the world. Like, he's known, and all these other guys like Bill Nye and all this and that and everything else that are speaking out.
Bill Nye, the climate guy.
Yeah. So they're like, and I mean, I'm not entirely sure that it does or doesn't exist. Exactly. I mean, I'm not debating that the climate is not changing.
Well,
because it is.
They've changed the rhetoric, because it used to be global warming, and Al Gore told me that New York would be underwater in 15 years, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now
it was half the state of Florida was going to be underwater by 2015.
Right. And before global warming, it was global cooling. In the 70s, I thought the ice age was coming.
But yeah, you look at, like, I mean, historically, like, based on scientific data that we can look at and everything, like, and, all the stuff that scientists do, and I'll give them credit and say that, they know what they're talking about, because I'm not a scientist, but I do believe in science. Like, the Jurassic period and this and that, when dinosaurs were roaming around, was like stupid hot, and there was like jungles all over the world. And then there was an
megafauna everywhere trying to eat everything.
Yeah.
And then
it was a badass time.
Then there was an ice age.
I think
and now we've warmed up again. So, like, things are going to ebb and flow, right? Like,
sure. When you look at all of the money, all of the pressure, all of the sort of societal norm is pushing towards global warming, when you see the amount of scientists that are breaking to speak out against the establishment, speaking out against the political pressure, like, you have to understand that those guys are doing that at a great personal detriment. They're basically ostracizing themselves, ruining their careers by coming out and saying this is kind of bullshit what was being reported.
Yeah, I think
so. You have to give those people that have no personal gain by making those statements, and have everything to lose by making those statements. You have to give them an extra level of credibility versus the people that are just going, when I say this, then I get a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I think Marty's really got the mic drop here, because the money, I mean, you got to follow the money. And when you have...
I feel like somebody should be vigorously rubbing their hands.
Oh, definitely. There is definitely enthusiastic hand-wringing going on. There's a lot of money at play. I know I've heard claims from many, I'm not going to say esteemed people, but I mean, many high-profile politicians who have come out and said this whole thing is one, a gigantic scheme to transfer wealth from the first to the third world. It's a way of transferring industry through environmental regulation, through EPA regulations, through other regulations. It's a way of forcing heavy industry to other parts of the world. Because let me ask you something: our heavily polluting industries in the first world that we've outlawed, where do they go? They just set up shop in another part of the world so that the products can be produced and we can still consume them. Nothing changes. It's not about saving the world. It's about transferring the means of production, right?
And again, it's not that it's not just because there's money there that you immediately discredit it, but you have to look at it with a lot more skepticism.
Oh, absolutely, right? Anytime there's lots of like huge dollar figures at play, you have to know that somebody, at least one player, is working a sinister angle.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So that's a point I want to address with that. I'm glad you brought it up the way that you did, Tyler, with transferring the means of production.
Not to be confused with the memes of production, though.
Yeah, which we are still firmly in control of.
And I want to add one more thing of just extraordinary claims require extraordinary proofs.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's I think it was Carl Sagan that kind of made that one popular, and it's that if you're saying that relative to the atmosphere, the relatively small percentage of carbon dioxide that we're adding is what's causing this, you need to be able to provide very solid and very accurate proofs. And when it comes to the scientific method, that means very solid predictions. You need to be very accurate predictions. And so far, that's not been the case.
No one's developed an accurate climate change model as yet. But to Tyler's point with the transference of the means of production, there's a question that I disagree with in the listener feedback about surely we can all agree that doing something, even a little bit our country alone could do, to try and offset the related downside would be a good thing. And I disagree that our country doing anything to offset this downside is a good thing, because this is the think of the children argument. If it saves just one life, all we're doing is...
It was even a stranger argument than that, though. It's almost as if he's saying, like, okay, if we can agree, even if, like, so he's almost saying that if he agrees that man-made climate change isn't a thing, then at least doing something would prevent the military aspect of it. So that's where I'm not certain what he's indicating. Is does he mean that we should be then stocking up on military and investing a shit ton more money in military?
Well,
because the climate is changing.
Because our military is woefully underfunded. But the way that I read this is, shouldn't we be doing something to like counteract the climate change? And I really don't think that we ought. We shouldn't as a country be paying tax dollars towards fighting something that we have so little control over anyway. Even if man-made climate change in Canada is really massively impacting the global scale of climate change, which I don't think is true, based on natural carbon outputs from things like volcano eruptions.
Okay.
Even if Canada
whales farting or whatever,
we're a carbon neutral country, all we're going to do is offset that by having China make more crap for us.
Yeah.
The total amount of carbon is going to transfer.
Yeah.
The industries aren't going away. People are still going to get their iPhones made. They're just going to have it made in Shanghai, and they're not going to be able to see the sky there. That's all that is.
Yeah.
That's
precisely my point. That's what's happening. The only one thing I would sorry, Marty. I just wanted to point this out before we move on. It's just on the subject of global warming in general. Everybody always throws up these slides of glaciers. So this is where it was in the 50s. This is where it was today. And we always shed a tear. Oh, this beautiful glacier. As if it was supposed to be static for all eternity. Glaciers move, right? I grew up in a valley carved by a glacier that's not there anymore. That's why my home was there. Things change. The world's climate evolves and changes over time. We saw temperature fluctuations in the medieval warm period and the medieval cooling period that far and exceed what we're seeing today in the modern era. And we didn't have, mass global industrialization to produce this carbon, that we're blaming it on today. But what the thing is like a lot of these arguments that people make based on Arctic sea ice, Antarctic ice shelves, glaciers, etc., they're based on the false assumption that these things are supposed to be static and constant. And that's just wrong. Like, we know that if we have ice that's not supposed to be there, it's going to melt. And it's going to melt at an exponential rate. So if we had ice that was more or less constant for maybe the 200 years we had our eyes on it, and then all of a sudden it starts rapidly receding in the last 25 years, that's not proof of anything except the observable melt rate that can be replicated elsewhere in all other circumstances. Like, we don't have the global, like the cooling temperatures required to produce these glaciers anymore, so they will melt, and they will melt at an exponentially faster rate. Like, this is just common sense applied to these natural things. But a lot of people just make these assumptions that because they've been there for the last 50 or 60 years, or the last 150 years, or however long it's been documented, that it's going to be there forever. They're not applying the science. They're not applying the natural circumstances that would lead to their ultimate, demise. Yeah. Like, the glacier is probably on its way out. It might take 15,000 years to melt, but that doesn't change. It's going to melt, man or no man.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing, right? So, 100 years to us seems like forever.
Sure, it's a lifetime.
We'll be lucky if we make it to 100 years.
Yeah.
So 100 years in the life of a glacier, that's nothing. So what? It's eroded. I mean, that thing's been there probably for thousands upon thousands of years, and now it's finally getting to the point where it's gone.
Like as it melts, the area, its total surface area, its contact with the ambient air relative to its mass is always increasing. So it will always melt at an exponentially faster rate as time goes on.
Yeah, exactly.
So the user, the feedback, you know what? I don't know if they're a firearms owner or not, because they didn't give a lot of information. but I think every firearms owner has witnessed the manipulation of data, sort of the omission of data, selective statistics, whatever, to push a political agenda. And if you're unfamiliar with this, look at the works of Gary Mauser, John Lott, and once you see firsthand the level of which facts, and I'm presenting this in quotes, that facts can be manipulated, created, adjusted to push a political agenda, you have to understand at that point that it's not singular to that one topic. And so I'm using fire as an example, but I mean, if any topic that you're familiar with yourself that is a political topic, once you see how it can be manipulated, you have to understand if they're doing it in that one spot, you have to assume it's being done everywhere. It's like once you understand, like once you know someone is a liar, you have to question everything they tell you.
Well, I mean, and like I deal with emission standards and this and that for work all the time.
Yeah.
Like I sell engines that make emissions. And I've seen in the 14 years I've been doing this, the standards get stricter and stricter and stricter and stricter. But the thing is, like, what has that done? Has our air gotten 10 times cleaner in Canada than it was 15 years ago? No, it seems pretty much the same. And guess what? In winter, like so on a snowblower, for example, there aren't really any emission standards because in the winter there's no smog because all of that crap that makes smog drops to the ground and it doesn't get it in the air because it's, gets heavier and it just stays there.
Yeah.
So they don't care about what the emission standards are in the winter because it doesn't make smog. They only care about emission standards in the summer. And I mean, I will say that like if you looked at like Toronto maybe 20 years ago and saw that sort of orangey haze, which was what copper dioxide, I believe, like hanging over the city. I mean, a lot of that had to do with automobiles and stuff like that.
And people burning pressure treated wood.
Yeah. So, to say that we haven't done anything by increasing some regulations on some of that stuff, I would say is ridiculous. But in terms of global effect on global warming, and I'm putting that in quotes, I mean, who knows? Like, and especially when China is still coal plants burning tons of coal daily to keep up with their electrical needs.
Actually, the coal plants thing is a great thing to bring up because it's like they shut down the coal plants here through regulation. Like we just can't have them, and that's despite us making like leaps and bounds, incredible improvements in the efficiency of the plants, scrubbing the emissions as they go up the smokestacks, like huge improvements, unbelievable improvements. So what happens when they finally shut all the coal plants down here? What do? Well, we'll ship the coal to China. They're happy to burn it, and they'll burn it with zero regulations. So what happens to the global air?
Even look at within Ontario, if you look at the amount of emissions that we've saved by going to all these windmills and solar and that, it's the same as what we would have saved by just finishing the scrubber install on the coal plants.
Yeah. And that's not even factoring in how much pollution is generated, manufacturing all the silicone, the cadmium, everything that goes into the solar, like everything that goes into the solar panels, all the batteries that go into our hybrid cars now, the permanent environmental damage caused by that. There's the disposal of these batteries, et cetera. Like none of these things are factored in when we're talking about this grand. Look, I'm going to say it. It is a primarily left-wing narrative. When we talk about this, none of these things are factored in.
Going back to the feedback, kind of, it's not following scientific method. And once you look at it with the amount of skepticism that's necessary to look at sort of any political pushed narrative, that's kind of why we're unconvinced about man-made CO2 causing global warming. But you know what? You said yourself at the start of your feedback that only a sheep agrees 100% with any party. And this just might be something that you disagree with us on. And, hopefully there's enough here in this podcast that you continue to agree with. You say you're socially liberal, fiscally conservative, which I think, that basically 90% agrees with the rest of us here. So hopefully there's enough here that keeps you listening, and hopefully you still enjoy the podcast despite sort of this disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, ask me a simple question. Is a running vehicle, spitting smoke out of its tailpipe good or bad for the air quality? Well, it's obviously bad.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
we'd all agree with that. Would anybody like to be trapped in a closed room with a running vehicle? I think not.
No.
You don't want to be there, right? So, but when we talk about, market economics, the market is the most efficient means of finding a solution to these things. We can't have government mandates doing it, because what they're going to do is supplant technology that is affordable and that people want with something that's more expensive, which creates a black market, so that we end up with the situation we have now, where we have technologies that are forbidden in Canada, and companies in Canada just move their production elsewhere.
Yeah, if
right?
anything, the rest of the world needs to catch up to where we are.
Exactly. So you need that market demand to evolve, and the market demand will evolve as their reality changes, right? Well, if their air quality is garbage, then they're going to want cleaner air. So they're going to want clean means of production.
Well,
we need tariffs in place to protect our industry.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. You can't have free trade and have disparity of sort of standards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I keep telling people. And I don't think it's really something we've really covered in great detail on the show. You cannot have free trade between economic units that have disparate levels of living standards.
Exactly. Well, if you look at if we're at such a insignificant portion of the carbon output as a nation, even if we reduce our input of carbon or output by 10%, which would be huge, that's insignificant.
Oh, but who got that guilt trip in school saying that as a Canadian you produce 5 times as much garbage as a European, or 10 times as much garbage as somebody in India or South Korea?
I don't know. The amount of socialism crap I've seen out of Europe, I think.
But that's the thing. If we're like 1%. Just picking numbers out of the air because I can't remember what they are. But
if we're part of the 1%.
If we're 1% of carbon emissions as a nation, and we reduce that by 10%, that's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
If China is
that's what you call
literal.
If China is 10%, and they reduce theirs by 10%, they've literally reduced their emissions by the entire amount that our country
Canada means nothing. If Canada alters its carbon output, it's a tick's fart in a hurricane.
Exactly. So it's maybe something.
I'm sure there's listeners. I'm sure there's listeners on the podcast that haven't had the experience. I've been in China for weeks at a time, and I've been in China in cities for weeks at a time, where you don't ever see the sun.
Oh yeah,
because
it's gross,
clouded by smog. And there's towns where they'll only see the sun for days out of the year because of the smog levels.
And I'm sure everyone's got a cough and everything else because of the smog constantly in their lungs. And
all right, thoroughly beaten to death.
I would say we flogged that dead horse significantly.
Yeah, no, and hopefully this guy doesn't think we've attacked him and attacked.
No.
I hope we've explained. Hopefully, he's taken this as an explanation of our position.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, if nothing else, we've made you question something, which I think is what this panel is all about. You don't have to agree with this, but we'd like you to at least question your beliefs, and we'd like you to question ours and challenge them.
Yeah, and I mean, he was a relatively new listener, as he stated, and I think he'll understand that a lot of what we say is in jest.
Yeah, we have a lot of cheek.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think part of that is because a lot of us just going to know each other. So there's a lot of sort of unspoken understandings that perhaps some of the listeners don't get. But hopefully this kind of clears some of it up. And there is a reason behind why we're saying certain things and why we think a certain way. And it's definitely not just conservative or quote conservative opinion. Actually, in fact, is global warming is anti or sort of disbelief in global warming? That's not a conservative opinion at all, is it? I don't think the Conservative Party is.
No, I think they're still on the global warming train.
Yeah, they
I
are.
think so.
They're just not
Political
spending,
suicide.
billions and billions of dollars on windmill contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hoping to swing the leftist vote over a little bit by not being against it.
Exactly. I think that that'd be suicide for them to say that they were against it.
Yeah, whoever that was, we'd love to have you on the show to hear more of your views. And I'm going to use the term argue for lack of a better term, but
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is not a
not
university,
malicious.
so
I
we're
mean-
going to have like challenging conversations. That's how that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, there is no safe space here.
So maybe we're going to change our opinions. I don't think that
It's possible.
my stance on
Yeah.
global warming is really going to change, but maybe show me evidence and I'll reevaluate my position.
Yeah, I think we're all open to listening to alternate viewpoints and then judging them on the merits of their value.
And
Yeah.
occasionally criticizing them mercilessly.
Yeah, well, if the shoe fits,
Yeah, the hard thing with this global warming thing right now, though, is just because of the manipulation of data. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that they've been going back and back adjusting historical data, like that's where it really starts to like fuck shit up.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the outro.
I
Nobody's
think
got
that-
anything.
I think that was the
Else?
longest rapid fire feedback ever,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's
but a good one. So thank you.
it's enough.
Thought-provoking. Okay, Gavin, where's the best place for people to stay in touch with you on the internet?
The best place to find me on the internet is on the Instagrams at urbex_GTA, or you can find me in person next Saturday at the Fuck Cancer charity shoot.
Right on. Marty, have you got the internet yet?
No, not yet.
Great. Where can people get in touch with you through their ham radio?
Just contact me through the podcast. Feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com.
Is that his BBM pin on the show notes?
Attention,
that's his-
attention, Marty.
That's his
It's a subject.
address.
Yeah.
Always messing with my jokes. All right, Tyler, where's the best place for people to stay in touch with you?
I mean, right here on this podcast is a great way, but like Gavin, I'll be at the charity shoot next weekend, November 5th, probably dressed very similarly to Gavin in multicam.
We like this signal.
Probably also a play carrier, but I can also be found podcasting with the International Liber Death Podcast. Our page is facebook.com/Liber Death Podcast, and we're on Twitter and Instagram at Liberty Podcast. So that'll do it.
Right on. As always, my name is Andrew. You can find all my work on everydaytactical.com or on Instagram and Twitter at edtactical. I will also obviously be at the charity shoot, likely wearing the appropriate team uniform.
Then I think we forgot to mention that the podcast does have an Instagram as well.
The podcast does now have an Instagram. You can find us at Instagram at Canadian Patriot Podcast.
I'm pretty certain I mentioned that.
Did you?
Beginning of the episode. Beginning of the episode.
I thought that was stripped out of there, and it was only you talking about the Facebooks. But whatever. Just to
It's
remind
important
people.
to get all of the social media. Remember, like, share, subscribe, etc. Leave us feedback on YouTube. Email the show. That's cool too. If you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, you can suggest something for Gavin to drink. If you want to email the show, the best place for that is feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Or if you'd like to do it in a way that I can't actually respond to your email, you can do that through feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback, and just use my own email address because it makes it really hard to respond to your emails.
Yeah, that or if you do actually get a hold of Marty on ham radio and suggest something for him to drink, he has to do it. I think that's a new rule for the show, right?
Yes. Social contract. Social contract. We'd like to remind all our listeners, you are the true north, strong and free.